cracking for this 856 cycle of the Lifestyle, Environment, Heritage and Resilience Committee. Whenever we gather here, we acknowledge and pay respects to traditional Aboriginal people of the land on which we gather, the Kurrawa people, and we acknowledge all their descendants. We also acknowledge the many Aboriginal people from other regions as well as Torres Strait Islander and South Sea Islander people who now live in the local area and have made an important contribution to our community. All right, let's get cracking. The first thing on the agenda is everyone being here. We currently don't have Councillor Castro, but I haven't heard from him. Has anyone heard from Councillor Castro? We're going to keep moving on then. Confirmation of the minutes. Does anyone want to move the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Great to have you with us. May lapse for want of a seconder unless someone else puts their hand up. Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Seconded. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. Minutes are carried. The forward planning schedule is a start item, and there's also a start item in relation to the Broadbeach craft market. Did anyone want to unstar either of those items? No, would anyone like to move the start items? Thank you, Councillor Doran. Seconded, Councillor Marshall. All those in favour? Thank you. Those start items are carried. If there's officers in the area about the Kurrawa Park, Broadbeach craft markets, obviously you can go home or back to work. I do want to just welcome Councillor Gates, Councillor Fowler, Councillor Hamill and Councillor O'Neill, who joined us today as non-members of the committee. Great to have you with us. Today's committee is primarily focused on our Natural Cities story map. We've got 3 presentations that kind of dovetail into one another, and so I'll call on the first one to come up and let's get this show on the road. You're welcome. Everyone, this is Naomi. Naomi, this is everyone. You're going to be great.
Through the chair, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity for us to present on our Natural City Smart Engagement tools. Before I begin the presentation, being new to the city and also this role, I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge some of the key architects and the teams behind this project. Yvette Hickman, our Senior Strategy Technical Officer within the ONC strategy, the work she's been doing with our teams across the conservation branch, but also our special services team and our web team to make this happen. So thank you very much. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the Our Natural City dashboard and our story map. As part of this presentation, we just have a short video to actually demonstrate these tools in action. Also provide an update of the next phase of our Smart Engagement Tools project, which is an interactive mapping tool targeted for private landholders with the purpose of trying to scale conservation on private land. So it's of no surprise to learn that a majority of Gold Coast residents hold environmental protection as a top priority. We live in one of the most biodiverse cities in Australia. So from the hinterland down to the coast, you don't have to go far to have that nature experience. So it is true to say that we are a city in nature. This is on the back of decades of work and investment in conservation on the Gold Coast. We now have that 10-year strategy, which is seeking transformational change for the protection and the enhancement of our natural environment. But as part of that, it builds on 2 decades of investment in conservation strategies within the city of Gold Coast. This is work that we should all be proud of. But there's still a lot of work to do, particularly around the awareness and the participation space. We know from our research that there's still only a minority of Gold Coast residents who know what the city of Gold Coast is doing every day for conservation. And at the same time, there's still only a minority of Gold Coast residents who know how to get involved. Since the adoption of the ONC strategy, it's these 2 statistics that we've been focused on trying to shift the dial. So what's our solution? Well, it's a big problem, but part of the solution, we have a project called the Smart Engagement Tools project. It was during our co-design process for the recent ONC strategy is that we listened to our key stakeholders, being councillors, our community partners, our city officers, and also residents. And what we learnt through this process is that while there's lots of information around the natural environment on the Gold Coast, it's hard to find this information. And then when you find the information, it's hard to take an action. So as part of the solution, we came up with the idea of having something like a dashboard, which is a snapshot of the values, pressures and the actions that the City of Gold Coast is undertaking to protect and enhance the natural environment. But we know data alone isn't going to inspire people or also shift mindsets. So this is why we have the story map. The story map provides the story behind these statistics, and it also provides more context because we know that communicating technical information, particularly around the environment, can be hard. The next phase, as part of the Smart Engagement Tools project, is then we have an interactive mapping tool, and work has commenced on this project. This project is targeted for private landholders with the intention of giving them the information that they need to make smart decisions when it comes to sustainable land management and conservation on their properties. So how do we go about building these tools? So there was an enormous amount of work that went into this project. We needed to ensure that all our environmental data that our conservation teams collect daily was available and accessible on the City of Gold Coast Open Data Portal. This was quite a huge undertaking. We also engaged subject matter experts, both internal and external, to help guide the story development. And as part of this process too, and I'm sure you can understand, we undertook extensive product and user testing, and this is ongoing. We also conducted a councillor roadshow. I was new to the city, so I haven't met all of you. But as part of that councillor roadshow, it was really important to get direct feedback from you because you are the eyes and ears on the ground. And throughout the entire process, the feedback has been applied, and we're constantly improving these smart engagement tools. So let's see these tools in action.
Introducing our Natural City Smart Engagement Tools, a state-of-the-art solution to share environmental data on the Gold Coast. A tool that will change the way we plan to protect and enhance our natural environment forever. The City of Gold Coast and our partners have been collecting environmental data through our monitoring programs for decades. This data informs policy and planning and directs management approaches, ensuring we are designing a city in nature. Our Smart Engagement Tools brings this information to life and in the one place. The first of these tools is our Natural City Story Map, which you can now access via the City of Gold Coast website. Our Story Map makes it easy for anyone to learn about our city in nature, what we are doing to protect and enhance it, and how to get involved. It includes a dashboard that summarises environmental data on the Gold Coast. It celebrates our environmental values, explaining what they are and where they are. Users can search an address to see what values relate to their property or an area of interest. A click on the map can reveal further information. It also shows environmental reporting, so everyone can see how we are tracking as a city, what the pressures are, and how we are responding, showcasing conservation initiatives across the city. This 3D map shows the land acquired, contributing to corridor connectivity and providing opportunities to achieve our native vegetation target. Also, how ecological restoration has grown since 2008. And the work of our partners. Here, you can see how many private landholders are part of our programs, and how many trees were planted by volunteers last year. Using data to tell our story brings the Our Natural City strategy to life. For the latest information on our natural environment, visit our website, cityofgoldcoast.com.au/Our Natural City. We are a city in nature. Let's protect it forever.
Great. So what you can see from the video, these tools are very dynamic, agile, and we can always add new features to these tools, and that's the benefit of using the web-based platform for the story map. An example has been the recent introduction of the koala sightings dashboard. This is just another example of trying to raise awareness but provide visibility to our residents about where koalas are on the Gold Coast.
Naomi, those 22 dog encounters, do they just count to the door in?
I would not know. Through the chair.
Can you explain what dog encounters mean? Do you know what that means?
Dog encounters are, and I'd have to say, maybe through the chair, sorry. I might actually take that on notice and get back to you because it's a different team. Yeah.
They look like Councillor Doran's dog, that's all. I just wanna know. I'm assuming they got to do with the koala and dog
It's like
collisions, maybe?
with like maybe dog attacks and stuff like that. Yeah.
But we'll take that on notice and come back to it. Sorry.
Thank you.
To bring a bit of levity.
You gave
to
me
the
a
meeting.
test too through the
It's a
chair.
good test there.
Thank you. Along the way, I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge all the people who have been part of this project. It's been critical for us to be constantly listening to the needs of our key stakeholders, being councillors, our community partners, also our city officers. We've already identified that these tools are going to be great for upcoming city plan consultations, and also our residents themselves. So where to for here? Now with the launch of the dashboard and the story map, work has commenced on the next phase, which is developing this interactive mapping tool. The idea of the mapping tool is basically to bring all the layers that you saw together in kind of one platform. And that's just so people can understand the relationships between the values and pressures, and then we'll be able to provide the actions of what they can take. So simple actions they can do on their properties themselves. We're working towards target user consultation within the next 6 months with the intention of providing the first release for this mapping tool this time next year. That concludes my presentation. I just want to take the opportunity to say thanks again for the opportunity to come here and show you these tools that we're all very proud of. Also, any feedback, ideas, questions, please drop us an email. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, Amy. I wanted to just start just by saying, when you came and saw me, we looked at, and there's a slide that you showed the whole of city map with, it's got Mayor Tom Tate at the top. But my understanding is that map can be converted by division, so each divisional councillor can see the map for themselves. Is that, can we go back to that slide?
So through the chair, that is correct. So what's available on the website is actually city information, because we don't provide divisional information on our website. But what we do is provide that information at a monthly to our councillors.
Yes.
That engagement has just begun in the last month. So yeah,
So on a relatively regular basis, divisional councillors can see the dashboard pertinent to their division.
Yeah. And this dashboard is updated monthly and then emailed through to councillors.
Great. Awesome. Is there any other questions? No? Awesome. Does anyone want to... I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm just searching the website through your chair. Is that video that you showed, is that available on the website? I'm just going through it now. Or can we get a copy of that video to share?
Through the chair, yes, we can provide the copy. We also have a social media version, which is like a bit shorter, targeted for social media audiences. So we'll make sure that that's available for all our councillors.
Yeah, if you could send it out to all councillors in the next week, that'd be great.
Perfect.
So we can share it. That'd be awesome.
Chair, can I just make a comment?
Please.
Would that be okay? Councillor Wilkinson, if you may recall last year when you came into your councillor position, we met and you said, where do I find all of this information? That's part of the motivation behind this project. So thank you for that. But it's really nice a year on to be able to present that back.
That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Please go ahead. You're going to move it. Right, that's great. I've got to move it. After that little comment, I'm going to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Martin's going to second it. Councillor Wilkinson, do you want to speak to that?
I'll keep my comments brief, Chair, but I do really want to thank Alex and the entire team for where we have come over the last 12 months. This platform presents an incredible opportunity for people to gaze in. At times, people say that things aren't as transparent as what they want to see, but this platform provides ample transparency on so many fronts. And if you want to know anything about our natural city, it is all there. And it's data that is so up to date as well that, you know, we are lucky to have that information in front of us. So I applaud the team because it has been a monstrous effort to get it to where it is today. But it's I think it's a huge win, not only for the benefit of our community, but for anyone who wants to come to the city as well to see how great a job we are doing. So thank you on behalf of myself, and don't want to speak for other councillors, but thank you as well. So cheers.
Cool. Does anyone hate it and want to speak about that? No? Councillor O'Neill, okay, that's it. Speakers against, all right, let's go.
I do not hate it. I just have a question. I'm just wondering if some information about this new platform and what we are intending to do has been put out to the environmental groups around, because it's always been my opinion for the last 9.5 years that we are doing great stuff in this space, and always have, especially with koala conservation and things like that. And certainly some of the environmental groups around don't even give us the time of day, don't acknowledge it, certainly don't mention it in any of their publications, which is a shame, because I think, when you work together, you actually get further and you achieve more. But I'm just wondering if you've had any meetings with any of the environmental groups about, the new dashboard.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. Yes, we're doing ongoing engagement with our environmental groups. We do, as part of the ONC, we have governance framework, we have the Partnership Advisory Group, which has representation for environmental groups. What also is upcoming is an important engagement opportunity for a forum called May2025, and that's going to provide an opportunity for that engagement with our local community groups as well. Yeah.
There's actually a series of events coming up. There's World Environment Day, and then there's the Emergent event, and there's also the National Landcare Conference, and there's a few other activities that are happening over the next probably 90 days to kind of 6 months that will be great opportunities for us to kind of talk more transparently and really openly about the body of work, which is pretty significant. Yeah. Is there anything I've missed? World Environment Day, Emergent, National Landcare?
No, in terms of events, no. Through the chair, sorry. The only other thing I'd add is, and Naomi touched on it, the importance of this tool in terms of helping us achieve the overall city target of 51% native vegetation cover. Obviously, the committee had the presentation around a month ago around we're tracking really well in that space. But as Naomi touched on, this tool will be hugely targeted at the private landholders, as well as, more broadly the community. But those private landholders, in terms of us helping achieve that target, are really critical, because at the moment it's kind of the 50-40-10 rule, where we have that 51% vegetation cover. Then we've got 40% of the city which isn't really conducive to restoration, and of that remaining 10%, over 90% of it is private landholders. So we really need to target what DJ's coined, the missing middle, to make sure we reach that broader city target.
Yeah, that's good. So we have a mover in Councillor Wilkinson and a seconder in Councillor Martin. Did anyone want to speak about the matter? All right, I'll take the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Naomi, thank you very much. Well, wasn't so bad, was it? No. She's already focused on the next thing. You did great.
Thank you.
Thanks, DJ. The next item we have on the agenda is the update for our natural city strategy. I think we have Soraya. Welcome back, Soraya. You come and present every year, don't you, about this? Or is it 6 months?
I haven't actually been here for the last couple of years.
Right, it's been 2 years. Okay.
Presenting in front of you all.
Great to have you back.
Thank you. So welcome. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Soraya Robinson and I'm the team leader for the Naturally GC program. The Naturally GC program is the city's forward-facing community environment program, and it provides the opportunity for residents and visitors alike to connect and conserve nature. Today I'm just here to give you an update on the Naturally GC program. So we're going to start off with our 2024 impact report. So as you can see here, so despite 2024, we had lots of wet weather, we had lots of challenges with storms, flooding, park closures, events rescheduled and cancelled. But despite that, our team, so this is all in partnership with community as well, delivered 285 environmental events. We planted 41,000 trees. So all of these trees were planted with community in our conservation parks. 12,500 participants joined Naturally GC or volunteered their time with the program across the year, and we had 54 partnerships. So these partnerships were with community groups, not-for-profits, businesses and schools. The purpose of today is to provide an update as well on where we've been and what we're doing into the future and what we have planned for the program. So some of our upcoming activities and major projects include our school holiday program. So this program is actually really in demand from families. We get lots of high uptake and involvement in the program. We've got our favourite activities like our wildlife encounters, but we're also working with community groups to undertake different activities and look at what else we can offer as part of the program. Citizen science activities. So these activities are more of an introduction for our community to get involved into citizen science. One of the new opportunities you can see on the left here with this image, this is actually an artificial tree hollow that has been installed in one of our council parks. So we're monitoring those with wildlife cameras and also getting community out at night looking for wildlife in those hollows. The next one is Indigenous culture. So we're looking at opportunities this year and how we can get people into our conservation parks learning about Indigenous cultural heritage. And then guided walks and wildlife photography. So these workshops are actually quite popular. It provides an opportunity for the community to get out in larger groups instead of going out solo into our conservation parks. Our community land care sites, so we have 26 land care sites across the city. These are going to be in every single division, so opportunities for community to do tree planting across every division. Some of the major activities that we've listed here, we have our Naturally Gold Coast Festival, which is coming up in June at Broadbeach. This is the city's big environment festival. We have around 54 different stalls coming along to that one to showcase our environment. The next one, this one's actually a really unique and exciting opportunity for the city. So the National Land Care Conference is coming to the Gold Coast. And with that, we are going to be hosting tours of our community conservation sites with lots of different land care groups across the city. We're going to be hosting special talks, highlighting our natural city strategy as well. So really great opportunity there with community. The next one is the environmental celebration that we have in November. All of you guys will get an opportunity to come along to that. That is an opportunity to celebrate and highlight volunteers and their work that they've done across the year. The next one is our bass fish release. So for those that aren't aware of it, we've we're releasing 36,000 native bass fish into our waterway. So Robina West Lakes is going to be happening there again. And then the next one is supporting the Pest Fishing Classic again. So this particular event, many of you have been involved in it before. We're going to be fishing with community looking for invasive species such as tilapia, European carp and koi fish. The next one is our Wildlife Festival. This is actually going to be a roaming event that we're going to be hosting across the city. So each division will have an opportunity to host this particular event. And that's really aimed at getting community understanding a lot more about our wildlife and also how to protect and care for them. The next one is our wildlife fodder plantation management. So this one, in partnership with Wildcare, we actually manage community fodder plantations. This provides the opportunity for Wildcare to access Leaf to support sick and injured wildlife across the city. And the last one, this is actually happening this weekend as well, is the Green Day Out, 10,000 tree planting. So that one with around 350 volunteers we have coming out this weekend alongside Division 1 Councillor Hamill is another feature event for the city. Moving forward next year, we are going to be scoping locations on where we can actually host that particular event again. So instead of me talking about what the actual program is, I just wanted to showcase some of the highlights in a visual wrap up for you. Let's press that one. some great highlights there. Really great to show you all of that. This next slide here is actually a visual presentation of what we can achieve together with Naturally GC and in partnership with our community. So on the left, we have Regatta Waters Park up at Kurrawa on the Kurrawa River, and the focus of this particular project has been restoring a big long riparian section of Kurrawa River. We have one of our members here today with us as well in Councillor Fowler. You can see some really great outcomes here. The before area, which was void of native vegetation, and the after picture here with this particular project is
the top is the before shot and the bottom is the after shot.
Yeah, the before shot and then the after here. With this particular project as well, we've been able to retain the whole middle section of this park for future sports field developments and community activation as well. The middle picture, most of you may recognise, is our most recently developed parklands, which is Green Heart Parklands. Fantastic asset for our community here as well. We were provided an opportunity in 2015 to be able to revegetate this area with the federal government Green Army program and also local community groups. 27,000 trees have been planted at this particular project. It's provided a wonderful opportunity to not just provide vegetation along our creek lines and habitat connection, but it also enhances the community's experience at this park, providing shade throughout those summer months as well. And the far picture there as well, that is probably one of our most hero shots for the Naturally GC program, and that's of Kurrawa Creek Reach inside the Eco Village. And the before photo, this was taken from a bridge straight down, so it's provided a really fantastic opportunity to showcase that before and after. The before picture, you can see there's little vegetation on the banks. It's quite eroding as well. We do have some environmental weed species such as camphor laurel, and then the bottom picture in partnership with the group, we've been able to rehabilitate a 1.5 kilometre section of Kurrawa Creek, which is also home to a platypus population. The benefit of these projects as well is we actually have the support of skilled bush regenerators in the city who help provide maintenance and ongoing weed control for these projects to ensure that they are long-term successful projects for our community, and we get not just really great community outcomes, but we get really good environmental outcomes for the city as well.
Those are impressive. Like, they are transformative pictures there. That's fantastic. Wow.
And we have quite a few of these, which we're always, regularly sharing these as well. But yeah, really great transformative projects, and the difference in the before and afters are just amazing. And some of the projects I've been able to see over my 20 years here, it still surprises me to this day how wonderful they're looking. So really great outcome and a really fantastic showcase of what we can achieve with community and what we can achieve with really good strategic programs to help support this. And finally, so this one was just regarding, in 2023, we did a Naturally GC review of our entire program. Some of the councillors that are here today are new and weren't around during this time, but throughout that review, we had lots of heavy investment from our community and also from councillors at that stage. Some of the things that came out of the review, one of the largest issues were before this financial year, we were largely funded through local area works and divisional funding. As of 24-25, we received that ongoing budget, which has allowed our team to be better planned, more sustainable, and also the ability to be able to commit to community to say we're going to do these projects, we're going to support these projects, and we're going to keep providing these opportunities. And then the second one was around a Naturally GC communications channel. So we're still further investigating this and what that might potentially look like to help highlight the outcomes of the program and bring our community together so they can share and celebrate together in the works that we're actually undertaking. Before I do finish up, I firstly wanted to thank the community and our community partners for making this program so special, but I also wanted to thank all of the councillors in the room and also our EGM and GM and management for the support and advocacy for this program and continuing to make it so special. We do have something very unique to our council. There's not many other councils that run programs like this. It's something we're incredibly proud of, and we really want to thank you for that support today. Thank you.
Councillor Gates.
Fantastic as always. I had two questions about consultation, to be honest. I think I read within the report that there's 285 or so koalas left at Kurrawa, and I just wondered if your branch is being consulted with regard to any applications that go to the EPBC. Do you have input when there's a development application for clearing of an area that's populated with koalas?
Through the chair, Councillor Gates, yes, we do to an extent have visibility. It's difficult with the state framework as well. We have to work in with the state framework, but the koala is a protected species under the state framework as well as the Commonwealth. So any impacts to koala habitat is either dealt with under the state or the Commonwealth legislation. Through our relationships with community groups as well as with the state and the Commonwealth, we are across the impacts and we are consulted to an extent.
Okay.
And we can certainly cover more of that off in the next item as well.
And my second question about consultation was whether you, Soraya, or your branch has had any input for suggestions regarding nature-based tourism.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor Gates, we have been heavily involved in that. Alex sits on the nature-based tourism panel, and then we've also been engaged with the nature-based tourism team within council in terms of providing input from a criteria perspective for how proposals that have been submitted through that program will be assessed, and we're actually actively taking part in that assessment process.
Great.
Of course, Councillor Doran, of course, Councillor Marshall, but if yours is related to that part.
Just relating to Councillor Gates' two questions. I think both of them, when I heard the questions, was linked towards the on-the-ground knowledge from in the field, no disrespect to our general managers, but is that information flowing from Soraya's on-the-ground knowledge to the koala, informing the koala decisions and also informing the nature-based tourism, right? Because Soraya's team is on the ground, you're having the high-level conversation. Does that connect, that information connect? And that was what I was interested in looking for those answers.
So, yeah, maybe Andrew or Tim or Alex or Soraya.
From our end on the field work, we do have citizen science programs, which we do feed that data back into with koala reportings back into our priority species team. The priority species team are one of the teams that are on the ground as well, but a lot of the data and the information that we get back, it does filter onto those teams.
And through the chair, just to add to that, Tim and his team are actively involved in the nature-based tourism projects and actually delivering a number of the work packages as we speak. So, yes, it is getting down to the natural areas conservation team.
So a number of the NBT projects are in Division 9, and I've worked with both the tourism team and Tim and his rangers, like the people who are working in, let's say, the Austinville option out there is, primarily on council land, and, we've been closely involved, and I've seen at every level of the that engagement, not just senior managers, but, rangers and officers that are working on ground as well. That's only my personal experience.
Commentary there. It wasn't a reflection on anything I know. It's just that people on the ground often see things, and sometimes in a large bureaucracy like council is, it doesn't always filter up to the decision makers at the top. Yeah. It occurs to me that Soraya is a good conduit there, and I was just curious as to whether that's tapped into for these decision-making processes.
Yeah. I have Councillor Marshall put his hand up, and then I've got Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair, and through you. Thanks, Soraya. That was unreal. I guess I've got two questions. One similar to the last presentation. The video on page 31 of our presentation, can we get a copy of that to share potentially?
Through the chair, yeah, we can provide all of that content for you, and you're more than welcome to share it.
And then I guess building on that, because we've got the Naturally GC in my area in June, which we're all looking forward to, and that was one of the first things I think Councillor Martin and I did last year. But you don't have a social media kind of link. I'm doing it on my page, but I guess with Healthy and Active, we share their stuff, but we don't. Maybe I'm missing it, so I could have the handle.
That's right. You touched on something that's quite fascinating, because we've had this conversation about whether Naturally DC should have its own entity, and I think that kind of plays into the communications piece that's kind of on the screen right now.
Yes, through the chair. So it has been brought to our attention, and it's consistently raised by both community and councillors and also your project officers about the lack of a social media channel for Naturally GC. We do have programs in other areas such as Active and Healthy and libraries that have an opportunity for a social media channel. At the moment, we are using our existing marketing, which is City of Gold Coast channels, and we understand that one city approach, but it would be wonderful, and we've looked into opportunities where we can bring an environmental area together so we can share these outcomes pretty readily. As a lot of you would know, we do host a lot of events and activities every single weekend, but we really struggle in being able to share those really, really regularly without having to use councillor channels or the limited other options that are available to us. So at this stage, that is something that we're looking to investigate and seek further approvals for.
Just speaking for myself, I really love that we can be co-hosts of those events and connect directly with our local community, so that kind of works really positively for us. But
yeah, and I'd probably second that. I think there's a lot of communication that we'll put out and then I'll request from you and put on our pages, but sometimes we get questions back on social media, then we have to go back to you to then answer on socials, whereas if we could link you in, it kind of cuts out that loop. But that was just...
Yes.
Through the chair, we can work out some internal protocols to make that easier and faster. Yep.
So I'm going to come back to that and maybe even incorporate that into the resolution that we come to, because I think there's a sense, I think, across a lot of councillors that we'd maybe like to change the approach. There's been I would describe it personally as a bit of a protectionism, a little bit, in that maybe the chief arm of communication naturally do see as kind of a quite a precious content driver, and that maybe they felt like the autonomy would undermine the reach of the core brand. So, but that's just speculating. That's my personal speculation. I had Councillor Martin and then I had Councillor O'Neill. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Chair. And interestingly, I'm a big fan of obviously Naturally GC, and the tree planting was a great initiatives. Interesting when we talk about communications. We obviously had our beaches team doing tree planting, and we have Naturally GC planting, which are separate and separate sign-ups. And so I think at time to have them consolidated would be better, in my opinion. So anyway, that's a comment. But a query, and I might need to take it offline, but I had a resident reach out to me last week with interest in trying to assist as a community member maintain our natural areas in the way that state national parks have a Friends of. How can community, other than joining a planting day, can community groups sort of form a group and look after a particular area, and how would we support them?
Yes, through the chair. So our Naturally GC Land Care program is set up. We do have community days, which are for ad hoc volunteers that might want to come along and play a part, maybe once a year or a few times a year or once off, and that's it. But then we already have established land care and bush care groups. So we do have opportunities if there's locals that are interested in forming additional bush care and land care groups. We obviously do have some eligibility criteria around that to make sure that we're being strategic and that we are having opportunities within certain areas. But they can reach out to the team and we can work with them if it's within a council conservation park, and or connect them with things that are happening close by as well. There's lots of, apart from Naturally GC, we have a lot of the Friends of National Parks groups that are also operating across the city. So within a couple of kilometres of most residential houses, you will find other land care or bush care groups that are already established. But yes.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Soraya. And congratulations to you and your team. As you know, Naturally GC programs are very well attended in my area, and your restoration programs along both creeks have been fantastic. Just wondering, have you or your team, or Dr. Tim, you or your team, been approached by the state government to have input into the eco park land along Currumbin Creek Road as yet? I did notice there was an invitation to Friends of Currumbin to actually go through the eco park land to have a look at the progress they're making there. But I'm just wondering, have we been invited as a council to do that, or any officers have been involved at this stage?
Through the chair. Thanks, Councillor. We haven't directly. I've been involved in that project, I guess, since its inception. I know other parts of council, our colleagues in open space, have been more directly involved. But that's certainly something we could follow up with our colleagues there and see if there's an ability for us to have a look at the site, because we'd be super keen to see what's happening.
Because I do believe that we are, once it's all finished, council will be maintaining it. It'll be handed over to council to maintain.
Is that a
question? Yeah, I just wondered. I just thought it was really strange that we hadn't been asked to have a look.
So the question is, has council been engaged, or has it been discussed between the state for council to be the manager of that asset into the future?
Through the chair, I'll probably take that one on notice. I know my colleagues have been in that space, and because it's got largely a recreational focus, they've been leading it, but they've been liaising with us. I'm sure if I go back through my emails, I'll find the answer there, but
Okay.
I'll take that on notice.
Is it okay if we get that before full council?
Sure.
That's next
Yes,
Friday.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, we'll do.
Great. Councillor Doran.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I ask my question, in the previous presentation we were given some statistics relating to something else, but I think they're relevant to the conversation around the Facebook group. 86% of Gold Coast residents hold environmental protection as a top priority. Only 31% of residents know how to get involved. So I think they're two pretty good statistics as to why some Facebook communication is probably good to connect with our groups. And I know that at local events, the few that I've been to in the last year, it's quite common as how do we get involved? How do we could get a bigger number if we could publicise a bit wider. Soraya, full disclosure to councillors, Soraya and I have known each other for a long time. You've been in this program for how long?
17 years.
Actually, I'll just clarify that. I played cricket with Soraya's husband, and I was in the wedding.
I was going to say, that was a bit
that's no problem.
we're in open session, Councillor Doran. Goodness gracious.
How long have you been in this role, Soraya?
So 17 years with the Naturally GC program, but 20 years with the city.
I suppose this is, Soraya doesn't know I'm asking this, but Soraya, what is the program set up for something if you were to be poached? Given you are such a huge advocate and leader of this space, and I know that Councillor Hamill last year led the charge to get some recurring funding into the OPEX, which allows you to, as you indicated, set up some more longer term programs. Like, is there a plan in place that if you left, this doesn't just start to fall away?
Through the chair. So recently, as
it's an organisational question.
I reckon, Soraya, you answer, because, and I'm going to let Soraya answer if that's okay, guys, and then I'll get you, maybe, I'll get Andrew or Tim to follow up.
I did give you a short scare recently when all of my team joined the Teams meeting. At this stage, I obviously don't have plans to go anywhere. I absolutely love this job and I love working with the city. Through that review, we did receive 2 additional staff members, so we are trying to go through that upskilling process. It is quite a large program, so it can be a little bit of a risk there, but we do have those new staff members that I'm trying to pass on all of that knowledge for, so they'll be able to have the opportunity to step up and lead as well in my potential absence.
I reckon that's a part answer, but I would love to hear the manager respond to that as well. That's right. That's you, Andrew.
Through the chair, thank you. I think part of my branches and the broader department, there's always succession planning that's put in place. While we do not want to lose Soraya, right? She's been the driving force behind this program for 17 plus years in terms of how we think about if that was to eventuate, we do have procedures in place from a succession planning perspective. So, yes.
So, thank you. So, and just to wrap that up in terms of the context, this is one of the programs that every single councillor that I hear nodding their heads now is extremely supportive of in our community.
Yes.
Knowing that in any organisation there needs to be some sort of plan for when somebody who's led it for so long, so passionately, if something happened, that to make sure that progress isn't lost. So, didn't mean to put you on the spot, but thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions about the Natural GC program? No? Great. Awesome. So I've just kind of adjusted the recommendation to kind of accelerate or amplify this idea that there be a dedicated Naturally GC communication channel for social media and what that might look like. So I don't know. I think 90 days is probably 3 months. Let's give them a chance to write a report and come back. Of course.
I have no problem with your recommendation, Chair. I just wanted to ask, given that we knew that there was that progressing to a degree anyway, which we saw on the slide, what time frame were we looking at receiving that anyway? Is there a date?
Through the chair, we don't have a date as yet. No, we'll continue to engage with internal comms on that, but happy to commit to...
Yeah, I think 3 months seems like enough time. And I think that the reason that I've asked for 3 months is a couple of things. Firstly, I've noticed, particularly in my division, and we have obviously a lot of, like the whole southwest corner is us, a lot of young people using it, like using the program, and none of them use Facebook. So the communications channel and communications method needs to have regard for the age of the participant. And not that I want to start a TikTok thing or some other. I don't have TikTok. I don't know how to use that. But what I do think is that if we go into it half-baked and just stick it in Facebook because we use Facebook, that's actually not going to be the most functional or strategic way to come up with a proper communication channel that's going to be effective to our target market. And the reality is, over the last 10 years in Division 9, we've seen a significant increase in young people participating in this program, and that would have to form part of this report, I think. You happy to second it? Thanks, Councillor Doran. So I'll move it, seconded by Councillor Doran. So I'll just open debate. Firstly, Soraya, your team does a great job, and I appreciate it's not just you. I appreciate you've actually cultivated this sense of environmental stewardship amongst not just your team, but every member of your team, and it's infiltrated other parts of the organisation. They've seen your success, and I appreciate also over the last 17 years there's been situations and seasons where, it'd be fair to say that maybe even other officers are jealous of the way that you do your work. You have there's a sense of passion about your work and loyalty to your program that other areas of council just, they covet. They want to see that. So you've done a great job. And the things that I think are most precious about it are not just the personal relationships, but you see those pictures where you see the before and after shots of anywhere between 10 and kind of 20 years, and you're transforming the environment and the recreational and conservation space for us. And it's just awesome to see that. And I know that doesn't happen without just your team. It happens with, Dr. Tim Robson's team and, people new to the team like Andrew. It's a full team effort at every level. So thank you for that. Did anyone else want to comment on their awesome program? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. And I was wondering if you would allow just comment, and I just want to reflect the exact same sentiments you've just shared. I just want to thank you, Soraya, for everything that you've done. I've had the fortune of joining with you to go and plant cameras in our wildlife corridors to monitor animal movements. You've done things like our seaweed monitoring programs. We've had nesting boxes placed along creeks. Like it's phenomenal, and something that I don't think has been touched on greatly in today's presentation is not only the environmental impact this has, but also the social cohesiveness that it brings for communities. It actually brings people together, and it gives them an opportunity, maybe not costing them straight out of their hip pocket, to actually go in and get engaged locally on stuff that they care about, and it benefits the community broadly in that respect. So I think it's a fantastic program, and look forward to seeing it continue well into the future, with you around, of course.
That's good. Did anyone else want to make a comment? Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Chair. Just in relation to the dedicated social media, I just want to acknowledge that the co-hosting that we do is really powerful, and would love to see that continue, even if we get a dedicated channel so that we can share that.
Awesome. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, I just wanted to make comment about Regatta West, because obviously it's the heart of Division 2. For councillors who might not be aware, that before and after was only 7 years. And what it has created is, I guess, a natural walkway between two pieces of vegetation and trees that people can walk all the way through. But you may have seen in our capital works budget over the forward plan that the Regatta West Sports Parklands is a project that's coming into that. So what I love about this project is we're getting major sites ready for what's to come. So the future benefit of that site is that all of the mums and dads and kids who are going to use those sporting fields are going to have this beautiful nature corridor all the way down the Kurrawa River, and it will have a bridge that will link to Damien Leedy Memorial Park, which is the most popular walkway in Division 2. So it essentially will become the whole heart of Division 2, and I think it's really an awesome effort.
Epic. Councillor Dron. Yeah, let's do that. So can we add a plural to channel?
I'm happy to second that again.
You're happy with that? I'm happy with that change that you've suggested. Goodness gracious. All right. Any other comments? Oh, Councillor Hamill.
Chair, I had the opportunity to address, to deliver an address at National Volunteer Week last week, and it was amazing out in the crowd afterwards, reflecting upon how many of those volunteers that were there, the strength of the relationships they had with different city officers from different programs. I made the point that morning of calling out the city officers that were there for that, because it is their passion that quite often connects the community into those programs. And to be very honest, talking to a dozen people afterwards, most of them knew Soraya really close and have been part of a lot of the programs that she is attached to. But there was also lots of other city officers who just bring an incredible passion to those programs and really help connect that volunteer area. And I just wanted to call out that this Saturday morning, we've got the largest tree planting event that occurs in the city each year up in Division 1.
Yep.
We're putting 10,000 trees in and hope to do that with 350 volunteers if the weather's okay, within a couple of hours. And just to, again, extend that invitation to all councillors and your families. It's pretty amazing to see a couple acres of land that you get there at 9 o'clock and it's bare grass, and 2 hours later there's 10,000 trees planted. It's pretty special to be part of. So please, if you've got nothing on Saturday morning, 9 o'clock up Montaga Hills Reserve, we're going to put 10,000 trees in record time, as long as the weather just plays nice with us for a little bit.
No rain this weekend, hopefully. I don't like our chances. Okay, all right. It's good to get a bit of watering. Any other comments? Great. Okay, so we have a motion moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Doran. The one thing that I think should probably be implied, I think it actually is really helpful for Naturally GC to do an annual update. You mentioned that maybe we didn't have one last year, and I think that's probably, we can rectify that. Each year there should be an update, an impact statement that we can put out. And it'd be good if there could be that annual update could probably have some, key wins like that impact report slide, so councillors can really share something tangibly about this program and how it's so precious to the city. All right, well, I'm going to call debate close. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Soraya, thanks. So the first presentation we had today talked a little bit about the digital representation of all the environmental action that's happening in the city. The one we've just seen is the participatory, like the community participation in environmental activity in the city. And the next one we have is actually about the priority species conservation. So it's the guts of actually protecting priority species in our city. So welcome to the team, and let's hear this one.
Through the chair, good morning. My name is Sinclair Britton. I'm the Coordinator of Biodiversity Policy and Conservation here at the City, and today I'm going to present on the Priority Species Conservation Program for you. Oh. Apologies, which one? Oh, yeah.
You right with the clicker?
Yes, thank you, sorry.
Good man.
The Gold Coast's diverse range of ecosystems, ranging from the coastal dunes through to the hinterland rainforests, along with our enviable climate, all contribute to why the Gold Coast is one of only 36 biodiversity hotspots on the planet. These diverse terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems are home to more than 6,400 native plants, animals, and fungi, and contribute significantly to the local, regional, and national economy through nature-based tourism opportunities focused around the natural environment. However, there are threatening processes that have caused severe habitat loss and population decline for many of our native species, and there is now an estimated 240 threatened species that live on the Gold Coast. Several threatened species, including the Ormo bottle tree, Ormo myrtle, Talabudra spike moss, hinterland spiny crayfish, and the Springbrook leatherwood tree, are found nowhere else on the planet but the Gold Coast. These are good examples of species that are so rare that urgent action is needed to ensure that their small populations never go extinct. To help address the potential threats to our city's most vulnerable species, the Priority Species Conservation Program was developed as an action from the Our Natural City strategy. The program builds on 25 years of of threatened species and natural areas conservation work, and aims to identify priority species for protection and conservation through various city programs and policies, implement targeted conservation actions, improve community understanding and appreciation for our priority species across the city, and assist with organisational compliance against federal and state legislation related to threatened species. So how did we identify the priority species to go on our priority species list? The list was identified through a risk assessment framework that considered the likelihood and consequence of species population declines. This approach is a modified version of the State of Queensland's Back on Track species prioritisation framework and involves developing species prioritisation criteria for use at a local government scale, a review by expert ecologists against that criteria, and finally finishing with city stakeholder consultations to come up with the priority species list. The updated priority species for conservation list contains 125 plants and 44 animals, to which the program has subsequently developed a range of actions. So how did we develop the actions for our priority species? To determine the specific actions for implementation, the priority species conservation team used a conservation planning approach that identified species habitat and ecology needs, threats, and requirements to assist in species recovery. This was followed by city stakeholder consultations and resulted in the development of over 500 actions for 85 of our highest ranked priority species. Finally, an innovative action decision support tool was developed that's used to prioritise these actions annually. The adaptive design of this decision support tool allows for actions to be continually refined over time as their performance is judged, and assists optimal and effective resource allocation. The 500 plus actions developed under the program have been categorised into one of 5 action themes. These are critical knowledge and improvement actions, such as identifying priority species habitat, population status and threats; habitat restoration, management and protection actions, such as improving habitat condition through ecological restoration; population expansion and management actions, such as propagation and rewilding of native plants; threat reduction actions, such as identifying and reducing vehicle collisions with our wildlife and improving advancements in disease research; and community engagement and partnership actions, such as our annual koala breeding season campaign and outreach at community events. Through the delivery of these actions, the priority species conservation team has achieved a number of significant achievements, and I'd like to briefly share some of those with you now. First, we have the creation of an urban koala response group. Through this group, the city and its partners are tackling the immediate threats of disease, vehicle impact, dog attack, and habitat fragmentation in some of our most at-risk koala populations. The inaugural meeting of this group was in December 2024 and consisted of stakeholders from key wildlife carer and hospital groups, expert koala ecologists, community groups, university researchers, and relevant officers from local and state government. Next, we have significant discoveries associated with the vulnerably listed Talabudra spike moss. The spike moss is a true Gold Coast local, previously known from only one location in the Talabudra Valley, with surveys for the spike moss recently having identified 2 additional populations. Importantly, during these surveys, city officers made an exciting discovery locating the critically endangered Border Ranges lined fern, a species previously thought to be extinct in Queensland. Next, we have some great recovery work being done for the endangered swamp crayfish. The swamp crayfish is a true Aussie battler that has managed to persist along Lotus and Bigara creeks.
An Aussie battler.
Yeah.
That's like a technical term, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks, Sinclair.
It's very scientific. In the heart of urban Gold Coast, a detailed population study was recently completed at Parkwood Family Park, and ongoing habitat restoration is continuing at the site. Finally, we have the threatened angle-stemmed myrtle. This species is known to occur only on the Gold Coast and in Logan, with the Gold Coast's known population consisting of only 2 individual plants in Maudsley. Surveys for the species conducted in 2023 identified 10 new individual plants across Maudsley and Wongawallan. Habitat restoration at these sites is ongoing, and a collaborative population recovery project has been initiated with Logan City Council and the University of Queensland as key partners. These are just a few examples of the important work being undertaken through the Priority Species Program. However, we can't do this alone. And as such, the program seeks to achieve positive conservation outcomes through proactive, collaborative approaches with our partners, many of which you can see on the screen here. As shown here, the program supports and leverages the work of other city programs to achieve desired outcomes. These effective program partnerships with city business units are achieved through regular consultation and aimed at identifying co-benefits and alignments for program outcomes. So what's next? Based on best practice decision making, the Priority Species Conservation Team will continue to deliver key actions from the program, including the Koala Conservation Plan, to achieve positive outcomes for the city's threatened species. We will be providing Council with an update through an annual Our Natural City Strategy program update in the future. Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to present on the program today.
Thanks, Claire. Awesome. Any questions about priority species, like the Ormo, what is it called?
Ormo bottle, yeah.
Ormo bottle tree. Do we have one near office somewhere?
I think in the grounds of the community centre, yeah.
Good.
I've got a Queensland bottle tree just recently planted.
Well played. Well played.
I only learnt yesterday they plant them away from other vegetation because they're not good in some locations, but they're beautiful trees. And the location that's been selected is within a roundabout.
Yeah.
And I just want to say how happy the community is with that tree.
That's great.
But it's a Queensland bottle tree, not an Ormo bottle tree.
Okay. Excellent. Any other questions? You're off the hook, Sinclair. Do I have a mover for the Priority Species Conservation Program and the other elements? Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Wilkinson will second that. Councillor Martin, did you want to say anything?
Just thanks, officers, for the report and really interesting work, and lucky to have you guys, and really great find some of those we thought to be extinct, but species of fauna there, so amazing update, so thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Hamill.
Sure. I just wanted to add that I think all councillors would experience when you hear from community members who ask, what are we doing in the environmental space and how come we're not doing more in this space? And that very much comes from a lack of understanding of just how invested this city is in this area. In the same way, Soraya pointed out that very few, if any, other local governments have got the kind of programs that she's involved with. Very few, if any, other local governments have got this level of program and work we put in this space as well. So just to call that out, the challenge or councillors that when you get that feedback from community members to get hold of these teams and to get hold of all that information, put it in front of them, because it is extensive and it's long-standing. And just to really congratulate the team on where we're taking this, that we're doubling down our efforts in this space to achieve those goals, not just of coverage, but of the work that goes with it. So congratulations to all, and really proud to be part of a council and a city that's so invested in this space.
Yeah, and I think that's why the story map piece is so valuable, when it's a public-facing piece that can really explain that the work that's being undertaken. Am I right in saying this Priority Species Conservation Program is actually part of that story map, isn't it? No. Yeah,
through the chair, yes, it will be part of it. Everything that the conservation branch does will be part of the story map. So we'll even have the vector, urban pest and biosecurity layers in there, and it is,
which is the feral deer program and that other stuff. Yeah,
that's right. And to Councillor Hamill's point, that's why we are investing in those tools so heavily, because we acknowledge that we need to improve our education and information transparency to the public, to really share all the work that we are doing. So that's. Watch this space. And also to add to that, the Partnership Advisory Group through ONC strategy, we've been engaging with them, and so the local community groups are really happy about this resource being developed as well, because it helps them inform their planning.
Awesome. Any other questions? It's great. All right, well, I'll take the vote. Councillor Martin's moved it. Councillor Wilkinson seconded it. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Sinclair, thank you for your presentation today. Thanks, Alex. The next item we have coming up actually is a report in response to a query or a resolution that was initiated by Councillor Martin, and it talks about the water quality testing program of popular waterway swimming locations. Luke and his team are coming up to give us a presentation on this one. Of course you can get a coffee. Okay.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. My name's Kat Burke. I'm the Manager of Environmental Health Compliance in the Planning and Regulation Department, and pleased to be here with you today to share some insights into the city's water quality testing programs. Water quality management and monitoring is very much a collaborative effort involving several of our city departments. But today's presentation will explain the types of water quality testing that we do in the city, with a specific focus on our public health water testing program that focuses on our popular use swimming areas. We'll talk through the actions that we take in response to adverse water quality and also the improvements that we're intending to deliver for the program in both the short and long term. Then I'll hand over to Anna Hollingsworth, the Coordinator of Catchment Management in the EHR department, who will explain the ecological testing programs completed and then summarise the 3 future reports to Council concerning water quality. As mentioned, the city's water testing focuses on 2 core elements, firstly being human health, which is our recreational water quality program, and that's led by us in the Planning and Regulation Department with the intent to identify risk to public health and ensure that our swimming locations are safe for use. The second part relates to the environmental elements or the ecological catchment health components, and this program is led by the Catchment Management Unit and helps us understand the health of the catchment generally and how we can manage these waterways into the future. Our public health testing program focuses on what we define as recreational waterways, so any natural, public, coastal, estuarine or freshwater areas where we see significant number of people use the water for recreational purposes. So that includes things like swimming and surfing, which we define as primary contact activities where the whole body is immersed in the water. And we can also look at boating, kayaking and paddling, which are more considered secondary contact activities. The reason we do this, this is an obligation or a statutory obligation under the Public Health Act. Local governments have the responsibility to ensure that these waters or recreational waters are safe for public use. And for that reason, the program aims to identify public health risks from the presence of fecal contamination and also cyanobacteria or blue-green algae or freshwater algae, which can produce toxins and lead to adverse health impacts. In terms of the sites that we currently monitor, there are 25 that are located across the city. These were selected historically in approximately 2011, and they are all popular and highly used swimming areas. So of the 25, 10 of those are open beaches, and they are taken to be representative of the entire city coastline. We have 6 creeks and estuaries, 2 lakes, and 7 netted council-constructed swimming enclosures. Our water testing aligns with the National Health Medical Research Council guidelines for managing risks in recreational waters 2008. The guidelines provide advice about where to sample, how to sample, and helps us design our monitoring programs. And it specifically gives advice and thresholds in regards to health-based guidance values to help us assess the potential health impacts and manage sites if we need to. In applying the guidelines, we test for an indicator organism known as enterococci. So that is a fecal indicator, specifically that of fecal contamination from warm-blooded organisms. Our catchment management officers take those water samples and then deliver them to our scientific services laboratory located at the Smart Water Research Centre. That is a NATA accredited laboratory, and they use the Australian Standard endorsed method to test to analyse for enterococci, and that process takes 24 hours. Routine sampling is completed every 18 days, and that allows us to gather enough data to do a short-term risk assessment and also identify long-term trends or changes in water quality. But we also do some wet weather sampling following rainfall in the city. So after 30 mils of rainfall in the preceding 24 hours, the team will take water samples from a subset of 11 of those 25 sites, and that will help guide us in determining how quickly our waterways are recovering after those events. For cyanobacteria and algae, that's more of a reactive sampling program, so done in response to a visually identified algal plume. At present, there's only one site in the city that is being currently monitored for cyanobacteria, and that is Lake Humunts.
So cyanobacteria this is the blue-green algae. I'm
Chair,
assuming
yes.
cyan and blue-green. I'm using the technical terms, just layman's language.
Chair, yes, correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
And the fecal contamination of warm-blooded animals is poo from humans and animals. That's the layman's version. Yeah, okay, great, awesome. Just so we got it very clear. Sorry to dumb it down for... Yeah.
Thank you. Look, in terms of the factors that influence water quality, all waterways are influenced by the activities that occur within their catchments. And as we know, there is a strong link between rainfall and the health of our waterways. In terms of stormwater, we know our city's stormwater infrastructure is designed to mitigate the risk of flooding, but what we can see under heavy rainfall inundation is that we can see a range of potential pollutants enter the stormwater system via overland flow from our farms, streets, roads and the like that are then carried into our environment and our waterways. In terms of sewage, under normal operating conditions, wastewater is transported to the city's sewage treatment plants where it undergoes treatment and disinfection before it is released. However, again, under heavy rainfall conditions at times, we can see the inundation and infiltration of the system, which can cause it to exceed capacity and overflow into designated points in the environment. The same goes for on-site sewage facilities or septic tanks if they are not properly maintained, this is in areas of the city where there is no mains connection. If they're not properly maintained, they can potentially overflow and impact the environment. And lastly, we can see also influences from domestic and wild animals. Whilst generally the city's water quality is very good, if not excellent, we do see water quality impacts after heavy rainfall. So if I may start, in response to wet weather, we take a general advisory and educationary position, and we've published information on the city website and also published alerts that we don't recommend swimming after heavy rainfall for up to 1 day at our open beaches and for up to 3 days at our rivers, creeks and estuaries. And that is consistent with national and state health advice and is used by a number of health authorities. We've also partnered that with some other educational information that we don't recommend swimming near stormwater outlets, and also encourage the community to make an informed choice about where they swim and look out for signs of pollution before entering a waterway. If we do see elevated results outside of wet weather, that will trigger a site investigation from officers within the Planning and Regulation Department, and this with the purpose of trying to identify any potential pollution sources within the catchment so we can address those accordingly. If we do find that there is risk to public health, then that may lead to us installing physical signage and restricting access to the site and sampling obtaining water samples until such time it is publicly safe to swim again, and then we can lift that advice and partner that with a range of information on a broad number of channels to maximise the reach of that information to the community. To help us improve and expand our program into the future, as well as help us deliver the actions within the recently endorsed Our Coastal Lifestyle Strategy, we've commenced the development of a strategic recreational water quality management plan. So the plan at this drafting stage focuses on 5 key pillars, the first of which being site selection. Whilst we currently only monitor 25 sites, we have identified through a review that there's potentially up to 160 sites within the city that could potentially be used for either primary or secondary contact activities. And through the plan, we're wishing to establish a prioritisation framework that would allow us, in consultation with the divisions, to take a phased approach to gradually and continuously increasing the number of sites that we monitor across the city. However, to be able to do that sustainably, we will need to review our monitoring program design just to ensure that we are positioned to efficiently deliver a long-term sampling program and maximise the use of our available resources. In terms of city processes, we'll just need to review and improve how we manage the administration and the risks associated with water quality management. And two of the key ones are communication and education. Whilst we do have some information available on the city website, we hope to deliver as part of the plan a broad and holistic communication and education program focused on the total water cycle, looking at not just water quality in isolation, but how that connects with the catchment, how that connects with the different pieces of infrastructure. So that way we can help the community understand how the total water cycle works, but also make informed choices about where they swim, and hopefully develop a swimming-based platform to support that as well. And lastly, the key element is looking for opportunities to improve water quality. We want to be able to ensure that we have a system in place for the regular assessment of the catchments to identify any new or emerging pollution sources, but also look to prioritise and understand if there's any need for any further infrastructure improvements over time. Whilst this is in the early stages of drafting, it is our intention to return this plan back to Council by December of this year for endorsement.
Does that coincide with other reports we're undertaking?
Yes, Chair.
Right. So this plan that captures everything will be kind of bolted onto another report that relates to water quality in other areas, maybe through you to Luke.
Chair, there is actually a report in the forward schedule, I believe, for this committee, December, to come back and talk about that particular plan once it's been fully constructed.
Yeah, cool. Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. As part of the strategic plan, we are hoping to deliver a platform much like you can see on the screen, where we can develop some predictive water quality forecasts about our sites. As I mentioned, there's a 24-hour turnaround in those samples, and those samples are reflective of the time that the water sample was taken. So this is an example I've extracted from the New South Wales State Government. It's called the Beach Watch New South Wales program, and the example there is of Sydney. And so you can see they've geographically mapped each of their swimming locations, but they have interpreted or applied the NHMRC guidelines to come up with a predictive forecast based on the rate of rainfall that the catchments experienced, plus an analysis of the historical enterococci levels. So what they've done is come up with some ratings ranging from pollution likely, being the red icon there, to pollution unlikely. And if pollution is likely, their general advice is water quality is unsuitable for swimming. Just in this example here, it's important to note that in the catchment, they had 20 to 60 mil of rainfall in the preceding 24 hours, and that's why the results look the way that they are. But they also published down the bottom their actual results with a star rating, ranging from good to poor, and that aligns with the criteria in the National Health Guidelines. However, in the short term, there's a range of improvement opportunities that we are progressing, and I'm pleased to be able to share with you today that we are working to publish the water quality data onto the city's website. We're probably only a couple of weeks away, hopefully. We just needed to do some system configuration to our data management system to facilitate that. We're intending to publish a graph of the enterococci data partnered with the rainfall trend associated with that, with also a star rating to give some context to how to interpret that data. We'll also uplift the city website accordingly, just to make sure that there's some clear information about the city's program and how to interpret this advice and some health advice generally, with the intention to link that to the city app to make it more accessible. We did explore some further enhancements to the city app, but unfortunately at this time, just due to some budgetary constraints, we'll need to consider that more longer term in the strategic plan. In terms of notifying the community, we did have an opportunity to put some information on the rates newsletter that accompanies the next round of rates that hopefully might bring some more attention to the work that we're doing in this regard. The next piece is alerts in relation to pollution events, and this is, I guess, known pollution events, just to make sure that we maximise the reach of that information. So we're working with marketing and external comms to explore the channels that we use to make sure that we reach the community and everyone is aware of that advice if there is risk to public health. Also developing a small suite of stormwater safety educational signage, just to promote the message that we don't recommend swimming near stormwater outlets, and hopefully, strengthen that advice to the community, and we're trialling them in 2 of the southern divisions. In terms of long-term water quality trends, I'm sure you're familiar with the State of the Beaches report. Annually, the long-term water quality trends for the 10 open beaches have been published in that report, but in future versions we're intending to publish the historical data for all 25 sites that we currently monitor. We expect to see that in the 25-26 version of the report, but we see the next version of the State of the Beaches report being returned to Council by December of this year. From here, I'd like to hand over to Anna to talk through the ecological testing components.
Thank you, Kat. Through the chair. As Kat mentioned, my name is Anna Hollingsworth. I'm the Coordinator of Catchment Management, and I'll be here today to just provide you with a high-level overview of the work the city's doing in the ecological water testing program. As Kat outlined, the city has a really robust program when it comes to public health monitoring, and we also have a lot of programs that support our ecological water environments. So where the public health testing looks at those risks associated with public health, the ecological water testing program looks at environmental condition of our waterways over time. There are a range of programs which fall within this, and they sit under the Integrated Water Quality Monitoring Framework, and that really is just a way of organising these programs so that they are designed and delivered with a clear objective and don't duplicate effort. There are approximately 150 sites that are routinely monitored amongst these programs, and depending on what the site is and what the program is, they can be monitored anywhere from monthly to biannually. And where the public health program really focused on looking at those indicators of fecal contamination, the ecological programs look at indicators for waterway health. So parameters such as physical chemical properties, nutrients, turbidity, suspended solids, and also biological parameters such as macroinvertebrates or water bugs. So under the Integrated Water Quality Monitoring Framework, there are a range of programs that contribute to our understanding of the ecological health of our waterways. The main one we use to really understand our long-term condition of waterway health is the Water Environment Monitoring Program, or the WEMP. And this really aims to support us in understanding how our waterways are tracking and to help inform our management decisions about how we can improve and maintain their ecological values. Within that program, there's actually a range of sub-programs. We have a routine water quality monitoring program at 57 sites across the city, and that's monitored quarterly. We have a biannual water macroinvertebrate monitoring program or water bug monitoring program, which looks at biological indicators of how our waterways are tracking. And we also have 5 continuous water quality and water level gauges at 5 of our key catchments. And we have been delivering a catchment health assessment program. So where these other programs provide a bit of a pulse check of how our catchments are going, the catchment health assessment provides us a bit of a deep dive into an individual catchment each year. We do 1 catchment each year on a 5-year rolling basis. And when we're looking at a particular catchment, we monitor more parameters, more sites, more frequently to give us a really intensive look of what's happening in that catchment. We've just kicked off the Broadwater catchment this year, and next year we'll be back up in the north of the city. So that's our main kind of water quality monitoring program that informs our decision making around catchment health. But we also have an incident monitoring program, and as the name suggests, this is in response to a waterway issue or incident, and it's reactive, so it's activated when we get a report of an issue in the catchments. And that could be anything from a fish death event to a pollution event. And our team goes out and works with Kat's team and the state government to investigate the causes and identify any corrective actions if required. We also have a range of targeted monitoring programs. So where the Water Environment Monitoring Program looks at long-term trends over time, these programs are shorter term, they're designed for a specific project or investigation. And an example of that is the Kurrawa Lakes tidal study. So this was a partnership with the state government where the city looked at really detailed water quality, sediment and benthic macroinvertebrate study as part of a broader collaborative effort to understand the environmental condition of this system in response to some community concern. Another example is using novel indicators like environmental DNA to help look for cryptic species within our waterways.
Cryptic species?
Well, hard to see like platypus.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Hiding.
Thank you, Chair. Another example is undertaking water quality monitoring for city projects like the Green Heart project. The city is also responsible for maintaining and managing a large number of constructed lakes, and we also have a constructed lakes monitoring program which aims to really help inform their management so that they can continue to provide that ecosystem value and community value as well. And there's about 50 sites that are routinely monitored as part of that program. And lastly, we have a receiving environment monitoring program. And this program is associated with the operation of the city sewage treatment plants, and part of its environmental authorities to monitor the environmental performance of recycled water releases to the seaway. So next steps, there will be a series of reports, both for the public health monitoring programs and the ecological health monitoring programs that will be coming back to various committees but for the end of this calendar year. In the public health space, as Kat mentioned, we have the 24-25 State of the Beaches report that will be presented to the Transport and Infrastructure Committee by Infrastructure Gold Coast, and that will be outlining those long-term recreational water quality trends at the city's beaches alongside other aspects of beach health. And then coming back to this committee, presented by Planning and Regulation, will be the Recreational Water Quality Management Plan that Kat outlined earlier. And that will really be providing the strategic direction and plan for the city to improve its water quality monitoring, management and communication in this space. And then in the ecological health monitoring space, we will be bringing back a report to this committee presented by EHR that unpacks some of the work we've been doing, particularly in the water environment monitoring space, and provide us with a bit of the baseline understanding of our ecological waterway health and how our catchments are tracking over time. And that's it. And I'll hand back over to Kat for questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Anna or Kat? Councillor Martin and Councillor Wilkinson, and then Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Martin, you get to go. Lead us away.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the ecological reporting, is that publicly available, the tracking and also the incident reporting? Is that something that's published?
Through the Chair, the ecological monitoring is part of the water environment monitoring program, so that long-term trend analysis is available on our city's webpage. And it's also available through the ONC story map that Naomi presented earlier today. We are working on developing a more publishable report format as part of that, which gives us the interpretation piece, because at the moment it's just data in a graph and it doesn't really unpack what that means, why does it matter and what we're doing about it. So that's the piece that we'll be bringing back later this year. In terms of the incident monitoring, most of the programs that my team are involved with in this space are reported to the regulator, but not necessarily reported to the public. They're not available on our webpage at this point in time.
So you heard in the report earlier from Kat that there's a plan for that recreational water bodies, kind of that New South Wales model, where there's going to be potentially a report that makes that better. Currently, it doesn't currently exist. Do you remember that map where the New South Wales beaches? So I think we're moving towards a model that might look a bit like that. Does that sound right? Or Luke or Kat, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
Yeah. But at the moment, we don't have it.
So would you think in the future state where we've got a sort of a more consumer-facing page or site where it's predictive, interested in the thoughts around whether when it's incident related that be sort of listed there somewhere more for community awareness, given there might be reports just to see that we've captured it?
Through the chair. That's certainly the intention, councillor, and I suppose the other programs, much like that Beach Watch program, they have a different indicator. Sometimes it's a black indicator to say, pollution incident or something like that. So that way we can partner that with some other communication methods as well.
Any other questions? You all right? So you're good?
I would like to request I can do this separately, but just a map of the locations on 150, but interested in those ecological testing locations. If I can get that.
Through the chair, yeah, those sites are actually available on the city's webpage, but we are intending actually to come and brief each of the councillors about what activities are happening specifically in their division. So I think you can expect a calendar invitation in the coming weeks, and we'll sit with you and provide you maps about exactly what's happening within your division.
You good with that? Councillor Wilkinson was next, then Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Hamley, you all right? You're all good? Come back. Okay. All good.
Perfect. Thanks. Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thanks, Anna, Kat, DJ. I've had the fortune of actually having to sit down with you all and go through this prior, and the care and dedication that you have towards improving this system, I think is something that I continuously am pushing for. I like to hear the element that you've touched on with regards to education as well, because I think that plays a big role within our own communities, and I know we've spoken about it, but certainly doing pop-ups and other types of things locally around my area I would support. I think we're moving towards what Councillor Tozer touched on as far as the Beach Watch program example. I think that's a great initiative for the city to be really mindful of. Obviously, people have interest in watching our health of our beaches and health of our waterways, and obviously keeping in real time as best as we can, and I think that's a really good direction we're going in as a city. The question I just wanted to pose more or less was, given that we are continuously trying to strengthen our water quality testing program, are you able to elaborate perhaps on some of the involvement that you've had with state counterparts and other community stakeholders as far as developing where we've gotten to today, and how we've worked collaboratively with them to try to get this moving forward? I'd also, while I just think of it, Luke, to you and your team, for every time I raise concerns about the Broadwater, I just want to thank you and the officers for your swift action. So, but back to the team on my question.
Through the chair. Thank you, councillor. Look, it is very much a collaborative effort, and of course many stakeholders from within the city, but from a state agency perspective, whilst it remains a local government responsibility, we work very closely, particularly with Queensland Health. A lot of our health advice is supported and guided by the advice from the Department of Health, and the same goes with the Department of Environment, Tourism, Science and Innovation, DETSI. We both similarly administer different provisions of the Environmental Protection Act, and we work with them closely if there is any pollution investigations that we need to take action on. But it also goes broader to, we've partnered in the past with Healthy Land and Water. After the 2011 flood incident, there was a scientific expert panel formed to help provide guidance to all South East Queensland local governments and how we manage risk to recreational waters. So much of all of the city's decision making, I'd like to think, is robust and well supported by the state agencies and scientific experts.
They're good. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Kat and team. And Councillor Martin and I have been fortunate enough to be involved in quite a few conversations about this lately with different stakeholders, and I thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to being able to put some more information out in simple terms to the general public, because a lot of them just don't realise, and are also up against other groups that do have their own method of putting out this information, and sometimes it doesn't have all the information that's really that paints the whole picture. I've got a couple of questions just around sewage overflows, one of them, because we, and you may have seen, the councillors may have seen, there's a lot of talk on social media whenever there is a sewage overflow. Some people go from 0 to 100 and say it's because of our infrastructure failing. But I just, from your point of view, and I know this to be a fact, sewage overflows after heavy rainfall can happen in any town or city. It's not an unusual thing, but it is treated water. I don't think people realise that either. So I think that the more information that we can get out, is that your take on this?
It's a long question. I think it might be for Luke. How does sewage overflows work?
Through the chair. Look, as I understand it, they're infrequent, and particularly under wet weather conditions, we may see that inundation and infiltration of the network, which may lead to some overflows in designated overflow points. Noting that I'm not an engineer, how I understand the system.
Your job is to test it, not fix the infrastructure. Is that right? Yeah, just test the water.
Yes, but look, how I understand it, if under those conditions where the capacity is exceeded, if they didn't overflow at those designated points, there's just risk of potential overflowing or backing up into parts of the community or into people's homes in some particular areas. But if I may, we do have a representative chair from Infrastructure Gold Coast who'll be far more better versed in commenting on the infrastructure than I am.
What's your name? You have to come to the front. You can't speak from back there.
Through the chair, sorry, if you wouldn't mind repeating the question now that I'm up here.
I was just saying there's a lot of talk in the media when there is sewage overflows due to heavy rain, and I think people automatically seem to think that it's a failure of some of our infrastructure when in fact it's actually just because of it exceeding the capacity of the pipes and things, the sewage pipes and things like that. So I just want to get some clarification on that because I don't think people really understand the situation.
Great. Through the chair. So you're entirely right. There can be issues that occur with the infrastructure capacity, particularly in wet weather events. I'm not aware of any town or city in Australia, or in fact internationally, that does not have any issues with wet weather overflows, etc. So it is, however, one of the things that we are looking at in depth as far as assessing our infrastructure performance to work out if there may be further investment warranted to reduce the amount of overflows that occur. I agree with your statement that there can often be reaction, both in the general public as to these issues, and there can be misperceptions sometimes about the browner water being attributed often to stormwater and the catchment overflows being attributed to sewerage overflows. So they can be quite different. So coming back to it, basically the overflows can occur because there is more inflow and infiltration that occurs from the rainfall into the sewerage network. So that comes, previous studies have attributed about 50% of that to inflow that occurs from private properties, by the way. But it can also occur through, for example, perhaps cracks in the network or some manhole lids. The overflows tend to congregate at the pump stations where they occur, where it's designed in to the system to have overflows that occur at specific places. So each sewage pump station we will have a designated overflow location, so it's occurring in a somewhat controlled environment. There are further presentations that we're planning to present in the infrastructure department, which is looking at the calibrated modelling that we've been undertaking and are continuing to undertake. So the one great thing about the calibrated models is it doesn't work from theoretical capacities. It actually looks and monitors what's happening in the system, so we can get real proper data to understand where in the whole of the Gold Coast the situation is worse, where it's performing really well, and that will help inform our infrastructure decisions. So as a note, we'll be talking about this further probably in about September, October or so this year.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
That was fantastic.
So it might have been a longer answer than what you're after. But
yeah, no, that's exactly what I wanted.
I'm Catherine Waterhouse. I'm the Manager of Utilities, Asset Planning and Management.
Great.
So
Well
water,
done.
wastewater and stormwater.
Forgive me.
Thank you.
I got Councillor Marshall, then Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. And through you, this is probably a question on notice more than anything, but obviously we're talking, and this is not for infrastructure, so I don't know if you want to do the infrastructure question. I might defer to Councillor Martin. Mine's not in relation to infrastructure, it's more the water testing. So,
Councillor Martin, do you want to go first, and then we'll come back to you, Councillor Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, my query is around our infrastructure. I think I've seen education and information part of the long-term plan, but I'm really interested in this short-term education and information because, like Councillor O'Neill said, I think there is a lack of awareness that our pump stations have discharge points for very valid reasons, in that if it was a sealed system there, it would overflow into houses. But I think there's a real lack of understanding or awareness that they have discharge points in heavy rainfall. I just wonder whether you've got any thoughts on why we wouldn't conduct some education now around overflows and our infrastructure system, so that people can be made a bit more aware of maybe discharges in their areas, without causing fear and panic, but maybe just informing them. Because Councillor O'Neill and I get a lot of queries around areas around pump stations that are overflowing, and they think it is a breakage when in fact it's by design.
Sure.
Go ahead, Catherine, or Luke, whoever you like.
Through the chair. So, Councillor, I think as part of this report, built into both the strategic plan, which acknowledges probably that longer term, but also in the short to medium term, the intent is to look at education across the board, and that will include aspects like what you're talking about. So the intention is to work across all departments within the city administration to develop an education program that really tries to bust some of these myths and provide the correct information that people can interpret and then make decisions for themselves to either utilise recreational water or not.
You comfortable enough with that, Councillor Martin, or do you want to follow up? Happy for now. You're on notice there.
Thank you.
Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And through you, this is probably in relation to the water quality testing, but probably for both health and ecological, and specific to Lake Humunts. Obviously, this time last year, for the first time ever, I think the city put an algicide in the lake, and it's been open since then, which has been fantastic. I guess a lot of questions I get asked from the community about is we test regularly and we're able to see the results of the test, but there seems to be, at least from the public's perspective, a bit of a disconnect between the testing and then what triggers, in terms of that lake, the treatment. We test the beach and obviously we wait until storm water's moved on and that's fine, but there seems to be a very, I guess, deliberate treatment technique for that lake, and I was wondering, it is probably a question for a response later on notice, but what is that pathway? Like, at what point after it's being tested or it's gone into red, how long do we leave it in red before we implement a FOSLOC treatment or a algicide copper-based treatment? So I thought I'd just ask it for a future.
Or do you want to invite Steve in? Invite Steve in?
Yep, through the chair, if we could invite Steve McPhee. He's the coordinator of Waterways and the asset custodian that might be able to provide some guidance.
Thanks for being ready, Steve. Appreciate it. Saw you hovering at the door there.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So with
so we're clear, Steve McVie, what do you do?
Sorry, Steve McVie, I'm the coordinator for Lakes and Waterways.
Thank you.
So my team is responsible for the management of the city's urban lakes, Lake Humunts being one of them. The city has spent a lot of money in coming up with a management plan for Lake Humunts, and we've gone through to the community and enhanced the knowledge around it. There's obviously some gaps still, as you've pointed out. We will only undertake treatment when the science backs it. So algae is a lot different to enterococci, that it can take a slow grow period. So we look at the data that's deep down in the lake to make a decision, and other factors as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Steve, and apologies, I didn't know you were out the back as well, but I think that builds that further narrative that we're talking about with the website, is that I think the more public-facing knowledge, and Lake Humunts is a really good example. We've done a really good project where people can understand that, but I think sometimes digitally, if we can promote that more, then people understand the work and the enormous amount of work that both Dan and Steve are doing in that lake, where they can sort of follow the narrative. So I guess I get those questions. How long does it stay red? How long does it stay orange? And that's, so thanks, Steve. I appreciate you answering that one.
So I want to follow up a question. So the beaches piece that we're talking about, which is effectively a public-facing communication platform about enterococci and cyanobacteria. Am I right? That covers both of those things? Or is anticipated to?
Yes, Chair, that's the intention to do both.
And is there anything inhibiting us from including in that coastal report a similar report on Lake Humans in that platform?
May I clarify, please, Chair? Do you mean the State of the Beaches report?
So yeah, you've given us that New South Wales example, and my understanding is you are going to deliver something like that for the 25 coastal sites. Is there anything inhibiting us from adding a lake to that public-facing platform?
Through the chair, I think in terms of trying to integrate, because you're talking about getting all the data in one spot conceptually, or at least as much as we possibly can.
I'm just kind of hearing what Councillor Marshall is saying, and it sounds like he wants some sort of public-facing platform that can help people make better decisions about the quality of water inside Lake Humans. I think that's kind of what he's getting at. It sounds like we want to do that for the beaches, but I don't recall us including lakes in that.
Yes, excuse me, through the chair, yes, that will be the intention, and the data for Lake Humans is already publicly available.
But through the chair, I think in terms of your point around making sure that data is able to be interpreted, that it's easily accessible, that people can understand it easily, is going to be a key focus of the development of it, I think, was the point I wanted to communicate.
In the New South Wales model, has those green or red or yellow or blue kind of icons that help you kind of determine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think building on that, and I know we had the briefing, so there's probably questions that I did ask in the briefing, but, forward-facing, long-term, it's on the city app where you can click on the water quality. My push and my drive is to have Lake Humans. It's obviously not a beaches cam, and it's not anything like that, but that it features there, or any water body that we swim in, which I know we're speaking about, but a lot of people ask, okay, we can see the water potential quality if we go online on a beach. Is that going to happen for Lake Humans? And I know there's a particular area for Lake Humans on the website. I just was more referring to the app and I guess that forward-facing piece.
Through the chair, pending technical aspects, that's certainly an intention to look at what can be integrated into the one platform.
That's great. Any other questions about water quality testing? Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Chair. Just in relation to the public health testing, I want to thank the team for hosting a forum recently. We had with Surfrider and Councillor O'Neill. We had Queensland Health and DETSI. But I couldn't, and I've been very supportive of, bless you, Surfrider's Blue Water Task Force testing through community grants, but I couldn't help but notice the figures that the city were reporting in terms of enterococci and Surfriders there was a disparity much higher. And I just wondered if you could just advise how that is. Are we using the same methodology?
Through the chair. Look, Councillor, as you're aware, we've been endeavouring to collaborate with a number of community groups, including the one that you've mentioned, to understand some of the similarities in our testing programs and also some of the disparities. And in terms of the similarities, we both sample for enterococci as the nationally recognised or recommended indicator. But in terms of what the city does, we're doing the analysis at our NADA accredited laboratory using the Australian Standard Endorsed Method for enterococci. And I guess the key part is where we take the samples. The National Health Guidelines advocate for the samples being taken in places where people swim. So that way we're giving public health advice commensurate with the level of risk and contact with the waterway. And perhaps one of the reasons why we see some disparity is that with that particular community group, we're using a different analytical method to that of the city. And some of their samples are taken at locations close to or near stormwater outlets, which may be contributing to some of that difference.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks for clarifying. And that is interesting. I think it sort of leads to my infrastructure question. Apology. My infrastructure question. A real-world example is Palm Beach Parklands, where we have a stormwater outlet near a swimming location, and I think maybe there's some testing from community close to the source, and we test the main water body. But it's interesting around our design. We've paired a stormwater outlet with a swimming enclosure, and as the city grows, double in size, I'm just really interested in those infrastructure improvements as well. And it's good to hear Catherine talk about looking at new technology, but really hoping to see that future structural changes might assist. Maybe they're better separated, or that we have a safe distance away. And I wondered if you could touch on, so when we say don't swim near stormwater outlets, is there any specific measurement, like it's not fenced off? Is there anything to say how far away they should be from that?
Through the chair, no, Councillor, there isn't any specific distance guidance given in any of the national health or state health guidance materials, but generally, I guess the general advice is look out for signs of pollution. If you see that the water is discoloured, murky, odorous, or the stormwater drain is flowing, then would yet recommend not swimming there. It's difficult to quantify a distance because it will, that distance may vary depending on the amount of rainfall. Under dry weather conditions, there wouldn't be likely any concern, but under wet weather conditions and depending on the amount and rate of rainfall, then that distance could potentially vary. But if I may continue, look, as part of the strategic plan, look, it is the intention to partner with infrastructure and look at some opportunities. But from a public health perspective, we really want to put some energy into assessing the inputs into the system. If we have an opportunity to address what's going into the stormwater system and manage that accordingly, then I'd like to think we should be able to significantly reduce the risk.
Is there any plans to address that from an infrastructure perspective? The idea of stormwater outlets that are close to swimming enclosures, is there a body of work being undertaken by TNI that might be addressing that? Just have to press the button. There we are. No, you're on. You're all good. The light's on now. You're all good.
Okay, sorry. So can you repeat that through the...
So Councillor Martin expressed a concern about the proximity of stormwater outlets to swimming locations and having regard for this idea that sometimes the water quality is questionable. Is there any work being undertaken by TNI to identify where those stormwater outlets, which I'm assuming are your assets, are located and altering or changing the outlet location to accommodate changing behaviours and practices of members of the public?
I think through the chair, I think I'll respond generally. I think in general we would be happy to consider new information as it arises that would change the criticality of and the risk of the infrastructure. So one of those things, in accordance with our environmental colleagues, is first contact swimming areas, for example. I would probably point out particularly that stormwater infrastructure can be very, very constrained because it's gravity infrastructure. So I know one of the points of interest here, it's already very low down, and because it's gravity infrastructure, unlike much of our sewer rising mains or water mains,
if you lift it up, it goes back and stays in the pipe.
Exactly. We're really constrained about where we can lift it up. Among other things, if you lift up the tail end, it means you have to lift up, the hundreds of kilometres upstream, etc. One of the other considerations that we need to have, and I think I know the particular point in mind, because it's already very low, it's already subject to a bit of sand going in, which again interferes with the hydraulics, impacts on the maintenance, for example, as well. So again, it's quite limited as to what we can do on it. So I hope that answers your question. Generally, we are open to investigating new options, but it's very constrained.
Can't fix gravity. It's an unfixable problem. Councillor O'Neill. Sorry, I said Councillor Gates first. Please.
I was just going to add some more to that one. Yeah.
You happy? Sorry, Councillor O'Neill, go ahead.
Chair, just to add to that, and you are correct, Catherine, and since 2016 I've lived the stormwater outlet at onto North Kurrawa Beach, and the fact that we can't actually extend that stormwater because of the sand ingress into there, it's a problem. We've had state government get involved, and it really is very, very difficult. I think I just want to point out here the situation when you have creeks, as in Tallabudgera Creek, and Flat Rock Creek and Currumbin Creek coming out to stormwater on the beach. that's a different situation altogether as well, because you're picking up all the sediment that comes through those creeks, and also with Crumman Creek, the Coolangatta Creek, the added situation is it goes all through the airport as well. So there's a lot of infrastructure and urbanisation done with those before that stormwater outlet comes onto the beach. So it's a very difficult situation. Again, I think people don't realise just the complexity of all these things. But yeah, you're fantastic with your information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Chairman. My question isn't about infrastructure, but about why is it, because I don't understand, why is it that we encourage people to swim in Lake Humunts but not, for example, the Robina Lakes? What's the difference?
Don't know the answer to that question.
Please.
Maybe Steve McVie could help us with that, given that he's in charge of all the lakes.
Thank you.
Help us understand why, Steve. Is it the bull sharks?
Sharks are a major, sorry, through the chair, sharks are a major constraint. So in Lake Humunts, it is
sharks are a major constraint to swimming.
Allow swimming.
I like that.
In there. So in Lake Humunts, it's an enclosed lake system, and there is a pipe that links to the canal, but there's a grate over the top, very similar to Hotter Lake, just out the back here.
Sharks. That's the answer. Councillor Gates, that's why.
There's no possibility of them accessing through the pipe.
Into Lake Humunts?
Yeah.
Sorry, through the chair. The grate size that's over the pipe is at a very small diameter.
Okay.
So we might get little sharks.
I remember many years ago.
No, we won't get little sharks.
Small.
Okay, there's no sharks in Lake Humunts. Let's be very clear. We're on streaming. All right. Thank you, Mr. McVie.
I mean, I can't let that go. I mean,
mention the word Robina.
Calm the people about the Robina West Lakes, please, in relation to sharks. Calm us down, please.
So why can't we swim in the Robina West Lakes?
So through the chair, those lakes are connected to the Nerang River through a gated system, which can allow sharks to come in and out. We are looking at opportunity to maybe put swimming enclosures in those areas as well.
Yes.
As part of our coastal lifestyle strategy. One of the big feedbacks that we got back from the community engagement was that they do want safer areas to swim and inland as well, so enhance our swimming enclosures. And so we are currently looking at options and also taking water quality samples as well to make sure those sites are safe from a enterococci point of view as well.
There's an early stage investigation in the idea that some of the lakes and water bodies in Robina be available for safe swimming. And we're testing the water quality and having a look at enclosures in order to potentially deliver that.
Chair, that is correct. But it is very early on.
Councillor Doran? Here's the scoop.
Follow up, please.
Funded by local area works, but go on.
The sharks that you've referenced, there's no more or less than any other water body that is accessible by the main river, right? Please say.
Through the chair, I don't have a count on how many sharks are in the system, but we do have visual evidence that they are in the Robina Lakes.
The fishing challenge just evolved. Our pest fishing classic just evolved. Yeah, that might be a lesson. Let there be a lesson.
We might need to set up a meeting, Steve.
Sorry, you've just created some more work for Mr. McVie. You have a meeting with Councillor Doran. Councillor Marshall.
I guess and through you, Chair, I guess I'd probably add, but that the majority, other than 6 metres down in Lake Humunts essentially is a freshwater lake. It's brackish from about 5 or 6 metres down, but it is freshwater comparatively to the other, I guess, canal-fed, salty sort of lakes. Am I right in thinking
That's a question?
That is correct. It is a lower in salinity.
Hence no sharks.
Because they don't like the fresh water.
Can't swim in the fresh water.
So you don't have to worry about freshwater crocodiles.
Sorry, through the chair, the bull sharks are known to go into freshwater reaches.
Stop there, Steve. Just stop there. Just stop there.
This is getting out of hand. All right. So, Councillor Martin, are you happy to move the item? Or goodness gracious. So I've got Councillor Martin willing to move the item, and I appreciate that in the context that the report and information that we heard today was catalysed by your preliminary questions. Do I have Councillor Wilkinson's happy to second that? Councillor Martin, did you want open debate.
Thanks, Chair. And what I'd start with is this report is really something that I'd hoped for out of that, I think it was just 2 months ago with the general business item that I raised, and was aware that the city was doing great work, but I think all councillors shared concerns and in some capacity had raised that with city officers. There's community testing of water quality, which is great that our community are dedicating time to sort of test and make sure that everything is kosher in our waterways. I had a thought that the city was doing this great work, but just really wasn't accessible. And so really pleased to see that the improvements here will be around the communication. So sharing the great work that the city's doing. There's really scientific data, and there's improvements that we can do now. We've got stormwater outlets, but there might be a lack of signage, and we can do that now to just improve that education component. Really excited about, I didn't think about a predictive model, but that's just really exciting to see that, because I'd hope for better, more live alerts, but better than that is the predictive. And I think, also having the trends and being able to see that matched to rainfall, I think will absolutely help that education piece. I'd still say that I think my continuing concerns is just around how we educate our community, because the waterways and the water quality is the final stage, but we've got many inputs. Not only is it stormwater outlets, but it's also sewerage pump stations and overflows that all lead back to this sort of stormwater element. So really keen to make sure that we keep progressing better education, better information, but infrastructure is a big one for me. I know it's difficult. I know there's logistical challenges like gravity, but I think our waterways are sacred, and we know how important naturally GC is, but waterways are the lifeblood of our communities. So any continued efforts there to continually look at infrastructure or placements, especially as our city grows, I think is so valuable, and I know all councillors share that. So I want to thank officers for doing such an immense amount of work, meetings, Kat, Luke on the team, and our environment team. Thank you. In 2 months, essentially, to bring this report really quickly, but also note that there's other reports interrelated, say water and waste, that we're still going to see. Really excited about the future strategy, about how we can escalate that. So fully supportive. Thank you for bringing it back so quickly.
Sweet. Does anyone want to speak against the motion, or you can make another comment if you'd like? No? All right, we're going to take the vote. We have a mover and a seconder in Councillor Martin and Councillor Wilkinson, respectively. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Kat, Anna, DJ, thank you very much. And Catherine, thank you for coming outside the normal. And Steve, you're also welcome. Thank you for the helpful information about sharks. That was great. We're going to have a 5-minute break. Let's be back no later than 11:10. Awesome. We are back. It is 11:11, and we're going to move on to a closed session item, which is the Community Lease Framework Review, and it's being presented by Mark. This particular report needs to be presented in confidential session, closed session, and because it involves commercial matters, and particularly relating to leases and such things. So I'll get someone to move us to close. Councillor Wilkinson and seconded Councillor Marshall. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Let's move to close. All right, we're back in open. We were in closed session to discuss the community leasing framework review, and we were in closed because some of the examples we used were case studies from specific organisations that have, commercial and confidence information, things like insurance policies and premiums and lease fees and things like that. So we've talked about that adequately in closed, but we are going to talk about. We'll have debate now. Now, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation for this, and I'd love a seconder. Councillor Marshall? Of course you can.
I just wonder why 4 is there when we're not there yet.
It's the 25-26 budget is the next budget, isn't it? No. Oh, maybe it's the 26-27 budget.
Yeah, what are the costs associated with the 25-26 budget,
a good question.
which we've already met, please?
The cost associated with it is the project delivery of it.
So has that been included in your budget?
Yes, it has been included. So there is cost to deliver the implementation plan and the cost analysis that is included in the 25-26 budget.
It's fully funded in our current.
It's fully, yes.
I don't understand the wording implementation plan when we haven't decided on what's going to be implemented yet.
Go ahead.
So the intent was the scope of 3, and I guess the wording could be improved, but it was to deliver what is in point 3. To come back with that, it's the project.
So when this report was written, the budget deliberation hadn't occurred. At the last special budget meeting, we finished that bit. So my gut feeling is that 4 has to be included because the report was drafted before we'd resolved the budget, and it could have been that the budget wasn't resolved by this point in time, but even though it has been, it is fully funded in what is the current model. The implementation plan and cost analysis is the next phase, which we're expecting in December 2025, which was in Mark's report.
Okay, it's just wrong.
Yeah. So the cost analysis and implementation plan are necessarily connected. We're not endorsing it. We're considering it in December. Go ahead. I've got Councillor Doran first because he put his hand up. Councillor Martin, sorry.
I think, Councillor Gates, I think a suggestion which I'll leave to you to the move as to whether or not the word implementation plan report might be beneficial here, because that's essentially what is listed as the funded item in the grey papers, and I think that would probably help. I'm happy to go into close to talk about this if we think, because I think we're probably dancing around and probably quicker to quickly just cover off what Councillor Gates is not sure of, but I think she's referring to the actual plan versus the report about what the plan would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the precursor is that following the presentation of the detailed implementation plan. But if the word report, adding the word report to detailed implementation plan, fix it, I don't have the objection to it. Councillor Marshall, do you have any objection to that? Can we add the word report after the word plan in the 3A? No. Oh, yeah, there, and also in 3A.
Councillor Gates, does that?
Well, I felt that it should. We all know that our budget discussions are done, and I just think it should reflect that it be funded from the 25-26 budget. I don't think
I'm with you on that. We haven't resolved that special budget committee yet at a full council meeting.
Well, no, we haven't, but we've been told by the EGM that it can be funded from the cost centre that they have created. So I think that it should just, and it's no big deal, but I think for transparency, it should say that the costs associated with this project be funded from the 25-26 budget, which we know has so far been supported for endorsement on the 6th of June.
Yeah, it has. Again, the 6th of June hasn't happened yet, so we haven't actually implemented. Yeah. How wedded are you to it? Obviously,
but we can't consider, unless someone wants to move a change to what the budget recommendations are on budget day, we can't consider. Like the draft budget has been considered is the point I'm making.
So the point...
You see what I mean?
Yeah, okay, all right. Let's change the wording then. I'm open to changing the wording, either via amendment or otherwise. The reality is that we're not actually resolving anything today. We're only recommending to full council, and that recommendation to full council will occur after the budget has been adopted. So we're making a recommendation to council. Council will consider that on June 6th, having already adopted the budget. But right now, that hasn't occurred. Yeah, I appreciate your help, though, in the insight. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. It might be through to you to the EGM. Just for clarity on this, is the amount noted in the report today that for funding allocations for the 25-26 already existing within the current budget for
what
this?
Page you on?
Sorry, page 206. Under our funding and resources requirements, is that amount listed there already been put forward as part of the 25-26 budget special budget committee considerations?
Through the chair, correct.
That's yeah. That's
so. Right now, our committee probably can only word it the way that it's been worded because we haven't resolved it. But at council on June the 6th, we could potentially change the words of that last, having already adopted the budget earlier that day. But right now, it hasn't been adopted. Sorry about the timing, Councillor Gates. Given there aren't any more questions, I'm just going to open debate. I think this body of work is essential for our city moving forward, and part of the reason for that is that we are putting, this idea that there's a cost of living crisis going on in the city is not just for residents; it's actually for community groups as well. And one of the challenges that community groups face is increasing pressures of insurance and operational costs and capital costs of future development of their facilities. And council needs to and should and has, through this report and this process of reporting, started to have a really detailed and analytical think about how we can help community groups focus on their core business, which is tennis or knitting or bridge or whatever it is they're doing, as opposed to governance and administration and maintenance of buildings and operational activities that are essential to running a community group when you're leasing a community facility. We are trying to do our best to come up with a leasing framework that helps have regard for that, allowing community groups to focus more of their time and energy and resources and volunteering resources on things they love to do and are excited about, and less of their time on things like strategic plans for future capital investment in their buildings that they're occupying. Whilst some community groups who lease facilities, let's say for instance a surf club or a larger sporting club, might have the capability within their membership to do that, lots of smaller clubs don't. And this community leasing framework has regard for trying to make, particularly for those smaller clubs, it easier to plan for their future in partnership with council, and also mitigate some of the costs associated with that burdensome activity. Truly what we want to do is come up with this review in a way, and hopefully in December when we start to see the implementation plan report and the greater cost analysis, we'll be able to move forward to help those community groups focus on their core business, serving the community in the great ways that they do, and make sure that we as council take responsibility for the elements of their activities that are really our responsibility, that we are already insured for, that we're already responsible for, and over the long term, we're the best and most certain entity to manage. That's my opening. Councillor Dorian, did you want to speak against? Well, he did say multiple times that he wanted to speak against.
So I've spoken in this place already about the desire to remove the burdens from our volunteers in managing our facilities. I think I said something along the lines of they're not asset managers, they're volunteers, and I still maintain that's my view. I'm optimistic of the key account manager model that has just in its infancy started within the community as an extra resource that can get closer to clubs to then filter more up-to-date information back to the decision makers about what is ultimately either an OPEX issue or a long-term capital plan. And this particular option today, whilst all of them that have been presented are detailed and well-informed, and I respect the decision that's been arrived at, to me, I don't have enough information around, and I get that's where we're heading, but I don't have enough information to endorse this because I don't know what the impact on the city budget is going to be, and I think it could be quite significant. I also think that whilst probably the majority of our community clubs all operate with the best intentions and they all do the best to deliver the service that they set out to do and respect the conditions of the lease with which they've taken over. Some people and some groups do drop the ball, sometimes through a lack of volunteerism or a change of focus or many other reasons. And I think that at that time there is the responsibility of the landowner and the lessor to ensure that we're protecting our asset via implementation of the lease agreement that the entity signed up to. And that doesn't mean to sound hard in its approach. That means to be a partner, as has been commented on here today. It's to mean to be a partner, but a partner that respects each other's obligations and liabilities. And in some instances, some clubs and community groups outgrow their facilities and we build new ones. Or in some instances, they do not have the right model for the facility that they have. And that sometimes leads to the facilities not being maintained as they possibly could be. I respect what the option 4 is trying to do. At this stage, I think that we should be a little bit more conservative in our approach to this and allow the key account management model to do its thing and see whether or not that resolves some of these issues before we plough forward with a big change in structure.
Thanks, Councillor Doran. Speaking for, Councillor Hamill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will speak for this today. I think just picking up on something Councillor Doran indicated about the amount of detail we currently have, I'd like to start with that I think it's important to remember that we are just endorsing a further report coming back today. We're not at the stage of absolutely endorsing a final model or the final costing. It's just to endorse option 4, which allows officers to go away and have clarity of where we want them to investigate further and dig a lot deeper and come back with that future report, which will have all that detail on the final model and the final costings, and therefore a future vote of this committee and council to decide upon that. In this space, we've currently got 700 million in assets and growing. Every time we replace a sports clubhouse or community lease building, we are adding millions more to that asset base. We have had some very scary examples of some real repair and maintenance issues occurring at our community lease facilities, and I think every councillor has been exposed to some of these. Issues with electrical work done without knowledge or approval of the city, canteens and clubs with mould issues, buildings with rusted footings and guardrails, plumbing not connected correctly. The current model, in my opinion, is not working as effectively as it needs to, and it is exposing the city to real liability and risk. Remembering that's where this started from. We had a report done and it identified that we have a very legitimate and serious liability risk that we're exposed to under this current model. It's not just the risk to the city, it is a real risk to the people using these facilities. We are encouraging hundreds and thousands of people to use these facilities every single week, and yet we know there are things occurring at these buildings and sites that need to be done better. All councillors, and I say all councillors because I think it's been a massive journey that this term of councillors have been on with the organisation around asset management, are learning more about what good asset management looks like. We've been shown a lot of data, a lot of graphs about how critical the small investments are each year in maintaining assets to avoid the need for major expenditure in the future. How critical that collecting high quality yearly data is to track where to prioritise funding in the future. And that asset data is a critical piece of this option 4. Councillors, I would challenge you that how many sports club meetings do you go to where asset management is an agenda item, or that there's a dedicated financial line in the budgets about how much money is being put aside in a sinking fund for asset management? I would say to you, it is not occurring in the vast majority of these facilities and with these leased community clubs. It's just not happening. Clubs are rightly trying to focus on keeping coaches supported, a canteen running, referees in the field. The vast majority, and I think the chair made the point, while there are some groups and clubs that are big enough, the vast majority of clubs are not equipped to manage multi-million-dollar assets. And we are talking about multi-million-dollar assets. There was a very high-level figure thrown around today in closed session about what this may cost over 10 years. May cost over 10 years. I think we need to have some context of what that figure actually looks like, that would be a figure out of a $25 billion budget over the next 10 years the city will spend. Not a big chunk of the city's proposed budget over the next 10 years. what I would say to you is that I think what the report in the future will show is that for that small investment of money every year over the next 10 years, that it can actually save us tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, in replacing assets before we should have to replace them. It will extend the life of assets, therefore reducing our longer-term financial impost on ratepayers. Critically, it also reduces our liability and risk, which, as a captive insured city, is something we need to be very aware of, and it is a way to reduce our insurance costs is by having better control over these facilities. Finally, why I think to reduce the liability of the city is the main reason councillors should support this recommendation and the future reports to come back. The second reason is the chance to have a very real impact on what volunteering and community groups and lease community facilities looks like in the city in the future. This would be an opportunity to look at taking away a major burden away from community and volunteer clubs and allow them to focus more of their time on coaches for junior sport, supporting our seniors, referees for sports games, running canteens, lifeguards in our beaches, scoring games, and the list goes on. Let volunteers in our community lease facilities focus on that. Let the best organisation in the city for asset management focus on that side of it, which is us. I would encourage all committee members to support the recommendation today.
Anyone want to speak against? Councillor Doran, you don't get a second go. Councillor Gates?
Can I just ask another question just before?
Of course you can.
Thank you very much. And I won't speak numbers, but in the report, there's an amount that we were advised of that was set aside to progress the delivery of an implementation plan.
What page are you on, sorry?
On page 206.
Yes.
And then there was another paragraph that said requested funding has also been put into the budget for this coming financial year to commence the development of the actual implementation plan. Is that set aside separately within the budget, and is it the right year? Like, is it, if support is given for this, is it going to be implemented in the 25-26 year or the 26-27 year?
Through the chair, it's for implementation in the 26-27 year. So all we're doing in the coming financial year is to build a report, and that was in the budget. And sorry, I was incorrect before in my statement. The amount presented at in section 7.1 is the current year, and next year's is actually very similar. So apologies, it's a similar number in the 25-26 number.
And that's identified in our budget papers?
Yes, correct.
Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to know.
Great. Anyone else want to speak for the matter? All right, I'll take the vote. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Did you want your name recorded in the negative? You're happy just to leave it? Thanks, Councillor Doran. Thanks to Mark. Good work. Thanks, Jody, as well. We have two items of general business that have been notified, and one is from Councillor Doran, and I'll let him bring it. I think we've got the words of it. It's a good idea. Love it, Councillor Doran. Speak of it. Tell us about it. Well, do you want to read it out first?
You want me to read it out?
Yeah, just so people who are on the stream can know what you're talking about.
This idea for a general business item came from a constituent that city officers investigate the prospect of including current and future City of Gold Coast designated bike parking stations onto the City app, and if achievable, then include the information as part of a planned City app upgrade.
Are you happy to move that?
I would like to.
Yeah, well, Councillor Martin will second that.
Before sending this general business item in, I did consult the chair very briefly over a post-it note next to during the chamber meeting.
This is how business gets done, Councillor Doran. Post-it notes.
But we did check the SAP system, for which maps all of our public infrastructure, and it is something that's mapped in our systems. That the infrastructure. It's also something that if we are as a city moving towards more and more encouragement of active travel, and this is a complementary element to that, and we know that the use of the City app is growing every day, every week, and the intention also isn't to add any extra burden on cost or the budget. If it is in my preamble to the general business item, it is to try to do it as part of a normal upgrade, and if it's possible to be done. I'm not seeking to add any burden onto the budget or to the workforce, and
it's great.
That's the reason for it.
I don't think we need a report or anything, but if you maybe provide a briefing note in the next couple of months, would be good. Awesome. Didn't want to speak against bikes or changing the app. No one speak against that. Great. All those in favour? That motion is carried. And then I have a second general business item from Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Wilkinson, did you want to have a crack at reading it out and telling us about it?
I'll certainly read it out, Chair, just for those who are following along at home, perhaps, just to give them some insight. So this GBI, I put it forward to ensure that the city's commitment to water safety extends just beyond our beaches to our network of enclosed swimming areas, and even from conversations today, we've noted there's about 7 of those across the city. And I'd like to propose the following, that the city investigates the potential to extend the city's patrolled water bodies to include all enclosed swimming areas located alongside playgrounds, barbecues and shopping facilities, and that a report be presented to Council in due course that provides a proposal for expanding the city's patrolled areas to include enclosed swimming areas, including proposed costs and resourcing model. This simply isn't asking for any kind of funding to be secured as such today. It's simply to look at what our opportunities are to enhance our further commitment to water safety across our city in those enclosed swimming areas. And unfortunately, we have had instances across our city in those particular enclosed swimming areas that have led to fatalities, and obviously any body of water can have that, but I think that there's opportunity here for us to explore how perhaps our lifesavers may play a critical role in some of those spaces moving forward. We don't know what that might look like yet, but that's the whole point of asking for this.
Okay, so I'm going to count that as you open, but we need a seconder. And the motion is just 1 and 2. So if you guys wouldn't mind just removing the preamble between the word recommendation and 1, yeah, just get rid of that. That's great. So I was going to ask a question about that before we move on to adding a date. Councillor Wilkinson, are you comfortable with this report not being exclusive to this matter? Is it possible that we could get this included in some other body of work that's already ongoing, as opposed to having a dedicated report?
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question? We still don't have a seconder. It's not really a motion yet, but Councillor Wilkinson's moved it. But go ahead.
Yes, Chair, I'd be happy. I believe there's some work that is coming forward in due course anyhow that this could feed into as part of that report.
So it's quite possible that you don't need a dedicated report. You're comfortable with asking for a report being potentially another report that's already on the forward schedule?
Without knowing the exact particulars of the report being brought forward, I would want to make sure that this is actually inclusive within the report if it wasn't already being considered, which at this time, I don't believe it was necessarily in this particular form being put forward in that respect. This is a bit of a standalone in its own right, being enclosed water bodies, and what I think could be an opportunity to bring forward to those bodies of water.
Just 1 second. So, Jody, is it possible to include a chapter or a clause in a coming report that addresses this comprehensively?
Yes, so we'd planned in meeting 859 to bring forward a risk-based assessment of life-saving capability and resources, so we can extend that from the ocean to enclosed water bodies as well.
Are you comfortable with that? We're already doing a report about risk-based lifeguard work.
Taking on board what Jody has just said, moving it just from beaches and looking at these particular areas now as well, I would take that. That would be fine by me.
All right, that's great. We've done that and open. Does anyone want to speak? Actually, we need a seconder first. Councillor Marshall is a seconder. So mover and Councillor Wilkins second, and I'm going to count those introductory remarks as you're open. Question?
I am ignoring interjections for the rest of the time. I'm questioning the bit of the language. I'll give you an example. Enclosed swimming areas is quite broad. I've got somewhere where there's a water body next to a shopping centre that someone could swim in, which wouldn't be appropriate for a lifeguard, and that should be captured by this report, but that would be inappropriate. So I'm wondering whether we could tighten up the language, whether Councillor Wilkinson could tighten that language up a little bit.
So is your question to Councillor Wilkinson, can you tighten it up?
Well, I think that
or are you proposing
my suggestion is that if it left as is, that's a body of work that that would need to cover every water body near one of those assets that is enclosed and could be used for swimming.
I think the answer to the question is Councillor Wilkinson's talking about patrolling, not about swimming. You're talking about adding lifeguards.
Yeah, and so just for clarity, the wording was actually produced from the City of Gold Coast website with our swimming enclosures. So that's where generated that wording from. So we list specific swimming enclosures across the city. So it's not just any body of water that's enclosed. It's
Thanks,
actually
Councillor.
our dedicated areas that we've noted as enclosed swimming areas.
So it occurs to me that the intent of this is to talk about patrolling existing enclosed swimming areas, not enclosing new swimming areas. Yeah. So it's very clear. This is about lifeguards in places that are already enclosed swimming areas, but not just having lifeguards at the beach, but having these other enclosed swimming areas. Question.
It worries me because several years ago there was an initiative by Parks to fence playgrounds adjacent to water bodies.
It's not what's being talked about here.
Well, I just think all those extra words, areas located alongside playgrounds, barbecues and shopping facilities, are irrelevant. And I wanted to know, my question is, how many enclosed swimming areas do we have across the city, please?
Donna, it's the wording from our own website.
I get that, but that's for a different reason than having lifeguards.
No,
So
that's the point.
So let's just pause for a second. Councillor Wilkinson, are you comfortable omitting the words located alongside playgrounds, barbecues and shopping facilities? So just enclosed swimming areas.
Look, Chair, I'm not uncomfortable with it as such. I would just note that on our city website, the wording is that we talk about for our swimming enclosures is the City of Gold Coast has developed a network of enclosed swimming areas located alongside playgrounds, barbecues and shopping centres. I was simply reflecting the words of our city anyway within the recommendation.
Yeah. Just on second, maybe Councillor Gates's question, I think, might have been how many enclosed swimming areas do we have that aren't at the beach?
And through the chair, I'd have to take that on notice.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm making is we've just been through a pretty extensive budget process where we are very well aware of the resources that we have available to us. And if there's 15 of them, then I don't wish to be wasting the officer's time going and researching something when they're obviously already doing another report at the moment that this could form part of. So I just...
That's all right. We'll wrestle with it as we go. Councillor Wilkinson?
Thanks, Chair. And just with respect to Councillor Gates's comments, again, I'm not asking for any money today. This is simply just asking that we consider, and as we've heard from today's discussion, we were talking about beaches. This seeks to actually look at enclosed swimming areas. That wasn't necessarily a part of what was going to be forthcoming. I think this is a great addition to enhancing water safety across our city, and I think it's worth investigating.
Okay. So I've got Councillor Curtis and then Councillor Doran.
Thanks, Chair. And I will be supporting the GB when we go to the vote, but I do want to get it on the record early that that's purely to get the report back that can be used to distribute to the community. I too am a councillor of an area that has tragically lost life in one of these swimming enclosures, so I understand both the demand from the community and the angst that creates, and we want to try and fix it. But I did a lot of research during that phase of previous trials that have run, and I am completely convinced that it is untenable to introduce patrol areas in these locations, so I don't think that will be the outcome, but I would certainly welcome a report that would help me compassionately communicate that to the community, and that's why I'm supporting it, not because I'm particularly interested in an alternate outcome.
Thanks, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Doran.
Just through you to maybe Councillor Wilkinson, and noting that our special budget deliberations are not for public consumption, but I feel like we talked about this. Can someone? Did we? Sorry, and then you all know what you think. You know,
I can answer that, and I'll answer it without breaching any confidentiality. It was part of our discussions, and it was something that, again, this isn't necessarily, and as with the wording there, it's looking at proposed costs and resourcing models. I'll give an example of our beach access program, for instance, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen every single day of the week. It's actually over at different periods in different locations across the city. It's a program of sorts, but we still have people that are actively there at particular times when those bodies of water are going to be used by people who are vulnerable within our community. So there may be something potentially that gets brought forward from the city that proposes simply not necessarily calling on more resources as such, but possibly a juggling of a program within the existing resources that could see those particular bodies of water perhaps enhanced with some additional water safety elements such as patrols. doesn't mean to say it would be there every day of the week. They might rotate across all the different enclosed water bodies. It's just simply to explore those options to see how we can improve or enhance their safety at those particular locations.
Of course you can.
What are alternatives than patrols? So safety measures, and just I honestly don't know. I don't have a known enclosed swimming area.
Well,
we quite clearly mapped today that Robina Common, East Lakes is not going to be.
No.
Well, we've talked about that at length. I'm not sure you want to bring that back up.
It's not so much. It's very specific on patrol bodies of water in this recommendation. So it is talking about patrols, but it doesn't mean to say that it would necessarily relate to, depending on what's brought back in the report, that it would be an additional, a full-time staff person or something like that. It might be something that is actually considered within the existing allocation of what we have as a city as part of a program of offerings that could be then distributed across the city to those particular enclosed water bodies. Does that answer your?
Well, is there anything else other than human patrolling that would be regarded as a safety measure?
Robots.
We do offer we do offer education and other kind of elements as well, but I think that this would actually enhance the safety of those particular bodies of water.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. So it's just dawned on me that perhaps it's a looking uplift in safety in general that Councillor Wilkinson's seeking, and would you consider a rewording that looked for alternative outcomes, because you are quite prescriptive there about it being an extension of the patrols that we see in the beaches.
Do you want to add after the city's patrolled areas, you can say, or other risk mitigation, I don't know, or other safety activities, or?
I might just ask through to the EGM. I could add that in, but would that then create a larger body that would be outside the scope of what you're potentially looking to discuss at the next?
Yeah, through the chair, it would create quite a large bit of scope.
Yeah. Whereas it doesn't occur to me that there's actually a lot of work associated with an addendum to an existing report that's being prepared about the cities. But Jodie, could you add some insight? Is this a big body of work, or could it be a small body of work?
It could be a broad piece of work. So we have been exploring, in pools, how we could use AI to supplement patrols and lifeguards as an option. But to explore on multiple fronts, both ocean and enclosures, that's a large body of work to look at. Instead of just expanding potentially what we execute today to other things, it would take more time and effort. It's an option, but perhaps the first wave is to look at
extending patrols and getting
got it in.
Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question. Just interested to know more about this risk-based approach piece of work that you're doing around lifeguards. Because it occurs to me that we've got beaches, lifeguards are growing there, but we've got the swimming enclosures, but we also have still water locations that sometimes are busier without the enclosure, busier than any beach. I mean, Tallabudgera Beach would be the still water there. And swimming pools. So I suppose I'm interested in that risk-based approach, because obviously we can't patrol everywhere, but I do acknowledge that perhaps with an enclosure there's a perception from the community that that's safer. And so maybe there's a level of lowering the guard. So just interested in that body of work, what you're hoping to achieve, or what that will focus around that risk-based approach for the lifeguards.
The original for the ocean base was to look at where we're experiencing growth. So at the moment, we're very successful as a city. We have not had a death between the flags, but what we're seeing is growth along the coastline is driving more people to points along the beach, and that presents risk when people are swimming outside patrolled areas or outside patrolled hours. So we wanted to look at the risks based on that. Where do we need to look at patrolling into the future? Versus growth, versus the risk of different locations. They all bring a myriad of things to consider. So things like the expansion of light rail will bring a lot more people to different spots, and that could present new risks in the future that we need to patrol for. So we started the body of work around that.
Go ahead.
When are you expecting to bring that back to committee, that risk-based
It was
approach?
for September, I believe, 859. We had it earmarked.
And is it intended that the swimming enclosures would be part of it, or from today you'd include that?
Through the chair, from today we would include that.
Right.
If there's no more questions, does anyone want to speak against it specifically? No? Councillor Wilkinson, do you want to close with some remarks and see if you can get the majority over the line?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I'd just simply close by, again, just highlighting this is just looking at an additional element of how we can improve water safety across our city. And it's simply, like I said, not asking for anything today. I appreciate that it'll be then factored into a future report that's somewhat being formulated already, but this gives an extra layer or an extra lens looking beyond our patrolled beaches to those other bodies of water that people may be selecting to go to now, just whether it's because of a choice, they prefer calmer water, whether they find the beaches are a bit too busy for them, whatever it happens to be, just to enhance the safety at those particular locations that the city is already directing people to as part of our design locations to swim. So I would appreciate if people wanted to support it, and we see that.
I'll take that as a close. All those in favour? That motion is carried. Is there any other general business anyone wanted to bring up today? Meeting closed 12:42. Thanks, guys.